Chapter 87. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. It sounded like a man's reading voice. It was intermittent. Every time he reached the same place, he would stop and start from the beginning. Little Jing Kong's OCD couldn't take it anymore. He walked over and saw Gu Dashun frowning under a big tree outside the Gu family's house. Little Jing Kong knew Gu Dashun, but he didn't talk to Gu Dashun before. He didn't understand why Gu Dashun didn't study at home but came to read under a tree. The family was quarreling over the tea leaves and hens. The second branch blamed the first branch for coming up with a bad idea. The first branch blamed Gu Shaoshun for messing things up. Gu Dashun couldn't concentrate, so he came to the tree to find some peace and quiet. He didn't expect to find some words that he didn't know. Hide. This word is read hide. Little Jing Kong stood behind him and said while looking at the words in his book. Gu Dashun was shocked by the sudden childish voice. He turned around and looked at Little Jing Kong in surprise. Little Jing Kong had been in the village for so long. He had heard of him and seen him from afar, but he didn't communicate with him. Little Jing Kong saw him in a daze and thought that he didn't understand, so he read again, hide. Hide. Gu Dashun didn't believe a 3-year-old kid. He looked away and said, "Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand." Little Jing Kong put his hands on his hips and said, "I'm not talking nonsense. I've learned it before." Gu Dashun said, "How could you have learned it before?" Little Jing Kong said, "I've memorized Vajra Sakyamuni mantra a long time ago." Gu Dashun looked at him suspiciously and pointed at another word. "What about this one?" "Ah. The Buddhas of the 3 eras obtained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through Prajna Paramitha. Prajna Paramitha Heart Sutra." His little mouth opened and closed, saying it all in one breath, so smoothly that there was not even a small pause. Even if Gu Dashun did not understand Buddhist scriptures, he knew that such a difficult sentence could not have been made up by a 3.5-year-old child. So he really knew how to do it. After that, Gu Dashun pointed out a few words to Little Jing Kong. There were words that he knew, and there were also words that he did not know. He did not expect that Little Jing Kong knew all of them and could even accurately tell where they came from. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Dashun bitterly. "How did you study? I heard that you are an elementary scholar. Are all elementary scholars so bad?" Little Jing Kong suddenly remembered that his bad brother-in-law had also just passed the Shiozai exam. Could he be as bad as him? How was he going to support his family? Could it support him until he grew up? Little Jing Kong, who was worried about his family, suddenly lost the mood to walk the chicks. He brought Little One to Little Chi back home. After putting the chicks back into the coop, he immediately went to the West Room. He was still not good at writing, mainly because he was not strong enough to hold a writing brush. But he had scriptures. He took out a few scriptures from his small box and went to Xiao Lulang. He casually turned to a page and pointed at a rare word on it. "How do you read this?" Xiao Lulang glanced at him and read it out calmly. Little Jing Kong frowned seriously and nodded secretly. He read it correctly. Little Jing Kong pointed at another word, which was the first word that Gu Dashun did not know. Xiao Lulang read it out easily. Little Jing Kong was satisfied. After that, he continued to test Xiao Lulang on many words. Xiao Lulang got every word right. He also tested Xiao Liulong's interpretation. Xiao Liulong's explanation was similar to his master's, or even more concise than his master's. It seemed that his bad brother-in-law was studying hard. Little Jing Kong was finally relieved. How could Xiao Lulang know what he was thinking? He thought that he suddenly wanted to learn how to read. The children in town began their education at the age of 7. Little Jing Kong was smarter than the average child and had some foundation in the temple. Perhaps he could be sent to the elementary school earlier. Xiao Lulang secretly engraved the matter of Little Jing Kong's opening of the door in his mind. On the other hand, Marquis Gu's injury was basically healed. He did not say that he was kicked by his own daughter and only said that he fell accidentally. The servants were forced to believe him. Huang Zhong received a letter from his family from the capital. After reading the letter, Marquis Gu's brows furrowed tightly. Huang Zhong asked, "What's wrong, Marquis? Did something happen in the Marquis's household?" Marquis Gu sighed. "The Marquis's household is fine. It's a letter from Consort Shu." Huang Zhong was puzzled. "Consort Shu? Did she summon you for something?" Marquis Gu helplessly folded the letter and sealed it. "Her birthday is coming soon. Jinyu's birthday is in the same month as hers. She asked me when I would bring Jinyu back to the capital. This year is Jinyu's coming-of-age ceremony. She asked me not to forget." Huang Zhong sighed. "Yes, in the blink of an eye, Miss is turning 15. Marquis Gu said, "There's still half a year left." The twins' birthday was in October. Huang Zhong smiled. Imperial concubine Shu must be thinking about Mississippi. Consort Shu was Marquis Gu's biological sister and had a good relationship with the former Marquis. She was not very close to Yao Shi, the second wife. She was also indifferent to Gu Yen. Only Gu Jinyu had won her favor with his talent. Marquis Gu had a headache. He could not return to the capital now. Even if he did, he had to bring Yao Shi and Gu Yen along. After all, it was Jinyu's coming-of-age ceremony. How could he not have his biological mother by his side? Moreover, he saw that Gu Yan's condition had improved greatly and he could return to the capital with him. Then, what about Miss? Huang Zhong was referring to Gu Jiao. "Of course, she'll be brought along," Marquis Gu said. "So decisive? Are you asking for trouble?" Huang Zhong was stunned. "You're not going to do the blood test?" Marquis Gu exploded. "You have to be able to get it first." "You're going to get it?" Huang Zhong shrunk his neck. "This subordinate doesn't dare." Marquis Gu frowned. "Yen is so close to her. There can't be a mistake. As for the catalyst, Rejuvenation Hall's medicine is temporarily effective. There's no harm in delaying the catalyst for a few days." But what?" Huang Zhong asked. Marquis Gu pondered for a moment, then said, "That child grew up in the countryside and has bad habits. Her words and actions are not feminine at all. When she returns to the capital, she will be criticized. Before she returns, I have to find someone to teach her a lesson." Huang Zhong's eyes darted around. Did you skip a crucial step? For example, Miss herself might not be willing?" Marquis Gu flicked his wide sleeves. Is there any room for her not to be willing? This Marquis is her father. Who cares if she believes me or not? If this Marquis really wants to take her away, can she rebel?" Huang Zhong curled his lip. "Then who was it that Miss hung on the tree?" Marquis Gu was not puffing himself up at his own cost. The person he was most worried about right now was not Gu Jiao, but Yao Shi. He did not know how to speak to Yao Shi in order to minimize the impact on Yao Shi. "Where's Madam?" Marquis Gu asked. Huang Zhong recalled, "I think she's in the peony garden outside the hot springs. This subordinate saw Madam when I passed by." Yao Shi was indeed in the peony garden. After Gu Jinyu's peonies had been destroyed, Marquis Gu had people quickly bring over a few more. He also built a new courtyard for Gu Jinyu to use as a peony garden. This could be considered compensation for the loss of Gu Jinyu's servant, Yu Ru. Gu Jinyu and Yao Shi sat in the center of the peony garden playing chess. "Mother, it's your turn." Yao Shi was lost in thought. Gu Jinyu waved his hand in front of her eyes. "Mother, mother." Yao Shi returned to her senses and smiled apologetically. "Is it Mother's turn? Mother will see how to move." Gu Jinyu took the chess piece she had just picked up and warmly said, "You've been playing for a long time. You must be tired. Why don't you rest for a while and eat something?" Yao Shi nodded and had the servant girls remove the chessboard. She brought over a plate of freshly cut fruits and a box of osmanthus cakes that she had personally made. Gu Jinyu ate some fruits and also took a small bite of the osmanthus cake. Yao Shi could tell that she did not really want to eat. The reason was that Jinyu's aunt, Consort Shu, had once said that eating too much desserts would make her fat. Ever since then, Jinyu had not touched sweet things. "Mother, your complexion has been good recently," Gu Jinyu said to Yao Shi with a smile. Yao Shi touched her cheek. Yes, after using Miss Gu's medicine, she felt much more relaxed. She could eat and sleep, and her mood was no longer so easily depressed. The only thing she could not understand was that she had been thinking about Miss Gu recently. She had been lost in thought just now. She should not have been so absent-minded when playing chess with her daughter. "Mother, wait a moment." Gu Jinyu put down the desserts in her hand and walked to a nearby room. She took a robe and draped it over Yao Shi. "The wind is strong. Be careful not to catch a cold." Her daughter was considerate, but Yao Shi did not deserve her daughter's consideration. No one knew that she had always had a secret in her heart. She had once hated Jinyu to the core. Ever since she gave birth, she had liked Gu Yen more than Jinyu. When she looked at the infant child, she always felt that she could not get close to him. When they were 3 years old, Gu Yen splashed a bowl of medicine on Jinyu. Jinyu was furious and rushed over to Gu Yen. She pushed Gu Yen to the ground and sat on Gu Yan's body. Gu Yen was pressed down so hard that he could not breathe. When she realized this, she walked over and roughly pulled Jinyu away, then gave her a slap. It was Gu Yen who had hit her first. It was normal for Jinyu to retaliate. Besides, they were only 3 years old. As a mother, she could have just separated the two children. There was no need to hit her. She still remembered Jinyu's shocked and hurt expression. Jinyu cried and called for her mother, but she did not feel sorry for her. Instead, she had an impulse to leave her behind. It had been so long since that incident. The two children had lost their memories of that time. She finally found her feelings for her daughter after interacting with them day after day. But every time she thought of this incident, she felt that she was not fit to be a mother. Everyone thought that her mental illness stemmed from her relationship with the Marquis and the public's criticism. But that was not the case. Every time she thought of how, as a mother, she did not love her own child and even thought of abandoning her child. She could not forgive herself. Jinyu was a perfect child. Even if she had hurt her in the past, she still respected her and was infinitely tolerant of her younger brother who always bullied her. "Mother, why are you crying?" Gu Jinyu noticed Yao Shi's tears. Yao Shi wiped her tears and smiled bitterly. "Do you feel that all these years, Mother has not treated you well enough?" Gu Jinyu held Yao Shi's hand and solemnly said, "How could that be? Mother treats me very well, just like father and grandmother. You and younger brother are the people closest to daughter in the world. Daughter will love you all for the rest of her life." On the way back, Gu Jinyu was called away by a servant. Another pot of peonies had arrived. She had to inspect the goods. Yao Shi walked back to her courtyard alone and did not let the servant girls follow her. When she passed by a fake mountain, Yao Shi heard the sound of an argument. "Do you not want to live anymore? How can you speak nonsense about this kind of thing? Be careful that someone hears and reports it to the Marquis and Madam. They will take your life." "Aunt, I am not speaking nonsense. I heard it with my own ears." Yao Shi recognized the two voices. One was Granny Fong from her courtyard, and the other was Granny Fong's niece, Cui Cui. Cui Cui was outside Marquis Gu's study, sweeping the floor. The sound of conversation continued, and Yao Shi stopped walking. "You must have misheard," Granny Fong scolded. Cui Cui loudly said, "I did not mishear. That is what the Marquis said. Our young miss was mistaken. She is not the Marquis and Madam's biological daughter." Yao Shi felt as if she had been hit in the head. She said in a daze, "What did you say? Who was mistaken?" "Madam?" Cui Cui and Granny Fong turned their heads and were both startled. Yao Shi walked in front of Cui Cui in a daze. "Say what you just said again. What mistaken? What is not your biological daughter?" Granny Fong quickly said, "Madam, don't listen to her nonsense." Yao Shi sternly shouted, "Shut your mouth." Yao Shi had a gentle personality, but even a rabbit would have a time when it was forced into a corner. Chui Chui lowered her head and stammered, Young Miss was mistaken. She is not your and the Marquis' daughter. The real young Miss was wandering among the common people and grew up in a village. She was ugly and stupid and was often bullied. When the Marquis found her, Yao Shi did not hear the rest of the words. She only felt her vision go dark and the world spin. Then her eyes closed and she fell heavily to the ground. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115715966. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gur mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 88. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. In the study, Marquis Gu was hesitating on how to speak to Yao Shi when he heard a servant report that Yao Shi had fainted. Yao Shi had been recuperating and had been living in the small courtyard. She would only come to visit Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu every day. When Marquis Gu arrived at the small courtyard, Yao Shi had already been placed on the bed by Granny Fong and Chui Chui. Granny Fong had caught a cold in the past few days and was not present to serve. Granny Fong had taken care of the matters in the courtyard and had personally gone to invite the imperial physician. Marquis Gu looked at the unconscious Yao Shi and then at the shivering maidservants in the room. His face sank. Who served the madam today? The two maidservants fell to their knees. One of them cried, This servant also does not know what happened. When this servant returned to the courtyard, the madam had already fainted in her room. Marquis Gu sternly said, How did you serve the madam? You actually let the madam stay in the courtyard alone? The other maidservant also sobbed, Marquis, please spare us. The madam usually does not like people following her. This servant did not dare to disobey. A group of useless people. While Marquis Gu was venting his anger, Granny Fong had brought the imperial physician over. The two were about to bow to Marquis Gu when he waved his hand. No need, quickly treat the madam. Yes. The imperial physician carried a medicine box and walked forward. He placed a silk handkerchief on Yao Shi's wrist and began to take her pulse. To be honest, the imperial physician was not optimistic about Yao Shi's condition. Yao Shi did not seem to have any serious illness, but her body had been exhausted long ago. She also had a mental illness and could not take any provocation. If it was serious, she could have hallucinations and go crazy, doing something irreversible. Marquis Gu was afraid of such a situation, so he had been hesitant to tell the truth. The imperial physician took a pulse for a long time this time. So long that Marquis Gu broke out in a cold sweat. How is it, Imperial Physician Chen? He anxiously asked. Granny Fong also looked nervously at Imperial Physician Chen. Imperial Physician Chen furrowed his brows thoughtfully and took Yao Shi's pulse again. Strange, very strange. Marquis Gu hurriedly said, What's so strange about it? Is madam's condition serious? Imperial Physician Chen shook his head. It's not serious. Yao Shi's body had always been very weak, and she could not be stimulated. Normally, when she fainted, it would be very dangerous. However, Yao Shi's pulse was steadier than expected. That was why he felt strange. What medicine has madam been taking recently? The imperial physician asked. Marquis Gu looked at Nanny Fong. Granny Fong was stunned and said, Isn't it the medicine that you prescribed? Imperial physician Chen said, Take it away and let me have a look. Granny Fong arrived in front of the dressing table and opened Yao Shi's medicine box. She took out the small bottles and jars of medicine that Yao Shi had been taking every day and handed them to the imperial physician. The small medicine bottle was filled with white pills, colorless and odorless. Imperial physician Chen had never seen this kind of medicine before. Inside the medicine jar were small bottles of granules. Imperial physician Chen had never seen this kind of medicine before, but he could smell the familiar scent of traditional Chinese medicine. He could vaguely make out the scent of ginseng, jujube, poria cocos, cinnamon, asparagus, and ripe rehmannia. Medicine can be made like this? Imperial physician Chen muttered. He had only seen medicine made into pills, but had never seen medicine made into tablets or granules. Especially those white pills, he could not identify the ingredients at all. Where did these medicines come from? Imperial physician Chen asked. Granny Fong looked at Imperial physician Chen in shock. Didn't you prescribe them? Imperial physician Chen said, I have never prescribed these medicines. Marquis Gu's cold gaze fell on Granny Fong. When did Madam start taking these medicines? Granny Fong hurriedly explained. As for the specifics, this servant can't remember. It's been a while. Madam had never been willing to take medicine properly before. When she suddenly started taking them, this servant thought that Madam had finally listened to Imperial physician Chen's advice. Was it these medicines that caused Madam to faint? Marquis Gu asked Imperial physician Chen. Imperial physician Chen said in a low voice, It's hard to say. The calming medicine in the medicine jar should not cause any harm to the body. As for the other type of medicine, I have never seen it before, so I don't dare to say anything. Marquis Gu looked coldly at Granny Fong. Who gave these things to Madam? Granny Fong said with a pale face. This servant is also not sure. Although this servant serves Madam, Granny Fong serves Madam the most. Granny Fong had gone to recuperate and was not in the mountain villa. Marquis Gu clenched his fists and said, Send someone to call Granny Fong here. Imperial physician Chen thought for a moment and said, Marquis, don't worry. Madam's pulse is better than before. Perhaps these two medicines are harmless to Madam. Marquis Gu said coldly, Then how do you explain Madam's sudden coma? This. Imperial physician Chen could not explain. Madam should wake up soon. We will know the truth when we ask her later. Granny Fong lowered her head and clenched her fists. Imperial physician Chen wrote a prescription, and Granny Fong took the prescription to the mountain villa's pharmacy to get the medicine. When she was boiling the medicine in the small kitchen, Tuetsue sneaked in from the back door. Aunt! Granny Fong looked outside vigilantly, closed the door, and said to her, Why are you here? Tuetsue whispered. Huang Zhong suddenly went to see Granny Fong. Did something happen? Granny Fong narrowed her eyes and said, Madam has been taking medicine recently and has recovered from her illness. Tuetsue's beautiful face turned pale. What? Didn't you say that, with a little stimulation, she will? Madame Yao had been stimulated before. At that time, Madame Yao's illness was not so serious, but she almost couldn't be saved. She thought that this time it would be foolproof, but who would have thought? Consort Shu's letter has arrived. She asked Marquis Gu to bring Miss back to the capital for her hairpin ceremony. Little Gongzi's illness has improved. Marquis Gu will definitely bring Madam and little Gongzi back. As Granny Fong spoke, her cold eyes fell on the steaming medicine pot. Huang Zhong went to Granny Fong's house and brought the sick Granny Fong back to the mountain villa. Marquis Gu personally went to the study to interrogate her. Only the two maidservants on duty were left in the room. Granny Fong brought in a steaming bowl of medicine and said to the two, Okay, I'll keep watch here. Go to the kitchen and see if the madam's porridge is ready. Also, don't forget to send the fruits that Miss wanted to Lanting Pavilion. Yes. The two maidservants answered and left. Without a third person in the room, the silence was somewhat frightening. Granny Fong held the bowl of medicine and walked step by step to the bed. She looked down at Madame Yao, who was sleeping peacefully, and said disdainfully, Madam, don't blame this servant. If you want to blame someone for not wanting you to return to the manor. Granny Fong pried open Madame Yao's chin and poured the medicine into her mouth spoonful by spoonful. Today was the day of Hui Chun Hall's follow-up examination for Gu Yan. The second boss had something to do and didn't come. Instead, Gu Jiao and the old doctor came. The two were directly brought to Gu Yan's courtyard by Yu Ye. Gu Yan's current condition was very stable. As long as he continued to take medicine, it wouldn't be a problem for him to live for another 2 or 3 years. The little dog's injuries had also recovered. It still remembered Gu Jiao and ran over to Gu Jiao with its short legs. In the end, it fell and whimpered. Gu Jiao thought of little Jing Kong, who always wrestled. The doghouse from last time was broken. Let's make another one, Gu Yan said without changing his expression. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. The house she made was very sturdy. How could it be broken? The servants all lowered their heads and pretended not to know that the young master had broken down the doghouse in the middle of the night. Okay then. Gu Jiao agreed. Making another one was no big deal. Gu Jiao stayed at Gu Yan's place for 2 hours. After finishing the new doghouse, she got up and left. After leaving the villa, she went to visit old Madame Li as usual. When she visited old Madame Li, she saw the mulberry tree and couldn't help but think of Yao Shi. She planned to see if Yao Shi's condition had improved. However, Gu Jiao went over and knocked on the door for a long time, but no one answered. Perhaps they weren't there. Or perhaps they couldn't leave because of other matters. Gu Jiao decided to come again next time. But the moment she turned around, her ears twitched and she heard an extremely painful groan. That sound was soft and far away. Normal people definitely wouldn't be able to hear it. However, Gu Jiao's training in her previous life included a listening skill. She had to be prepared to recognize the other person's breathing under the interference of hundreds of different sounds. After changing into this small body, her body was far weaker than in her previous life, but it was gradually recovering. The sound was the Marchionesses. Gu Jiao was certain of this. Gu Jiao didn't care if the door was closed or not. She took a few steps back and jumped over the wall. When Gu Jiao arrived at Yao Shi's room, there was only Yao Shi left inside. Yao Shi was lying unconscious on the bed. Her face was green and her forehead was dark. Her breathing was very weak. The room was filled with the smell of Chinese medicine, but there was no medicine bowl. Gu Jiao found a few drops of medicine that had not dried up by Yao Shi's pillow. She leaned over and sniffed. It was aconite. Aconite was a Chinese medicine that was used to relieve pain and cold, but it was poisonous. It was not easily used. Yao Shi's body was cold, so she could not touch aconite. Gu Jiao was not certain how much Yao Shi had drunk, but she had to spit it out as soon as possible. Gu Jiao pondered for 3 seconds and immediately opened the small medicine box. She took out a special infusion tube and slowly inserted it into Yao Shi's stomach through her nose. This kind of infusion tube was specially prepared for the fugitives in the organization. It was harder than normal infusion tubes and could be used to kill people. Gu Jiao did not think that she would use it to save someone. Gu Jiao took out a bottle of sodium chloride and connected it to the other end of the tube. She held the bag and quickly poured the infusion into Yao Shi's stomach. The first bag was quickly finished. Just as Gu Jiao was about to pour the second bag, the 2 young maidservants who had been sent away by Nurse Fong returned to the room. The 2 did not recognize Gu Jiao and were immediately shocked by the scene in front of them. Who are you? What are you doing to Madam? The 2 of them came back to their senses and pounced toward Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao could not be interrupted by them. She kicked a stool and knocked the 2 to the ground. Maidservant A. Maidservant B. Someone come. Someone wants to murder Madam. Outside the room, Nurse Fong's hands trembled. It can't be. She found out so quickly. Marquis Gu had just finished interrogating Nurse Fong when he heard the maidservant's cries. He quickly rushed to Madame Yao's room and saw Gu Jiao pouring something strange into Madame Yao's nose. When he left, Madame Yao's complexion was still normal. But now, it was blue and black, as if she had been poisoned. This girl, could it be that she was trying to poison her own mother? Marquis Gu was burning with anger and walked over with a murderous look. "Stop!" Gu Jiao ignored him and increased the pressure of the infusion. Marquis Gu saw that not only did she not listen, but she also increased the pressure. He was so angry that he pulled out the whip at his waist and fiercely whipped Gu Jiao's thin and small back. With a crack, the whip landed on Gu Jiao's back. This was not an ordinary whip. It was a military whip used for executions. Gu Jiao still did not let go of Madame Yao. Marquis Gu angrily gritted his teeth and reached out to grab Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked over with a cold gaze. "If you don't want her to die, then get out of my way." Marquis Gu was shocked by her murderous gaze. The last drop of infusion was poured in. Gu Jiao pulled out the infusion tube and helped Madame Yao up. She pried open Madame Yao's mouth and used her finger to check her throat. In the next second, Madame Yao's body trembled and she spat out the medicine and the infusion. After spitting it out, Madame Yao's complexion was no longer blue and she could breathe with some strength. At the same time, Imperial Physician Chen also arrived. He had just gone to give the Marquis Madame a pill. Why did it seem like the Marquis Madame had died in just a short while? Isn't this the little medicine boy from Rejuvenation Hall? He recognized Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao did not speak. She calmly stood up and put away her small medicine box. Imperial Physician Chen finished checking Madame Yao's pulse and frowned. How did Madame get poisoned by aconite? Marquis Gu frowned. Imperial Physician Chen looked at Gu Jiao and then looked at the medicine on the ground. He could more or less guess what had happened. Fortunately, Marquis had this little medicine boy help Madame vomit. Otherwise, Madame Yao would have lost her life. I really did not think that a little medicine boy from Rejuvenation Hall would be so powerful. Marquis Gu did not hear the rest of the words. His mind was filled with the whip he had just given her. He did not say that he had used 100% of his strength, but he had used at least 80%. "Stubborn girl, can't you speak properly? Must you take the whip?" Marquis Gu would never admit that he had hit her wrongly. It was clearly because she did not explain herself that he had misunderstood. But why did he feel a little unconfident? Marquis Gu looked at Gu Jiao with a guilty conscience. He was about to say something, but Gu Jiao had already carried the small medicine box and left with an expressionless face. The wind of late spring was very warm, but her back was cold. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/115685803. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gur mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 89. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. Marquis Gu began to order a thorough investigation of Madame Yao's poisoning. According to the 2 servant girls, the medicine was brewed by Granny Fong and was also sent by Granny Fong. The 2 of them were sent by Granny Fong to deliver something to Gu Jinyu. What happened after that was unclear. "Call Granny Fong over," Marquis Gu ordered coldly. After a while, a servant came to report, "Marquis, Granny Fong is missing." Marquis Gu's large palm suddenly clenched into a fist. Very quickly, he remembered that Granny Fong still had a niece-in-law in the manor. "Where is that servant girl called Chui Chui? Bring her to this Marquis." "Yes." The servant accepted the order and left. Granny Fong did not take Chui Chui away in order to not attract attention. When Chui Chui realized that something was wrong, she hurriedly packed her bag and left. Unfortunately, she was one step too late and was caught by the manor's guards. When she was brought to Marquis Gu, she found out that Madame Yao had been poisoned. It was easy to guess who the person who poisoned her was. It was Granny Fong. Cui Cui fell to her knees and trembled. "Marquis, please spare me. It wasn't me. I don't know anything. I'm innocent." Marquis Gu said, "Innocent? Then let me ask you, how did Madame faint?" Cui Cui stammered, It's, Marquis Gu said sarcastically. "Good, there's no use keeping this tongue. It's better to pull it out." Cui Cui's body trembled. I'll tell you everything. It was Granny Fong. Granny Fong made me do it. She made me tell Madame what I overheard on purpose." Marquis Gu's heart tightened. "What did you say?" Cui Cui said fearfully, I said, Miss is not her biological child. She was swapped." "Bastard." Marquis Gu was so angry that he smashed the teacup beside him. Cui Cui's entire body was crawling on the broken pieces of the teacup. Her hands were bleeding, but she did not dare to move an inch. "Master, please spare my life. It was Mama Fong who forced me." Marquis Gu was worried that this would happen, so he never dared to tell Yao Shi the truth. He would rather not acknowledge that child for the rest of his life than have anything happen to Yao Shi. However, he had been careful and had allowed the two lowly maids to reveal the truth. He said sternly, "Madam treated her well. Why would she do that?" Cui Cui sobbed, "I don't know. Auntie. No. It was Granny Fong. She ordered me to do things. She never allowed me to ask for the reason. I don't know why she wanted to frame Madam. If I didn't listen to her, she would let her nephew beat me to death. Marquis, please judge clearly. This servant is telling the truth." "You listen to her more than you listen to this Marquis and Madam." "What? Her words are imperial edicts?" At this point, how could Marquis Gu not see that Cui Cui's words were half true and half false? It was true that Granny Fong had ordered her, but her wild ambition was even more true. If she did not covet the benefits that Granny Fong had promised her, why would she work for Granny Fong? It seemed that she would not be able to get anything out of her. Marquis Gu waved his hand in disgust. "Drag her out and beat her to death." "Marquis, please spare my life." "Marquis, please spare." The guards did not give her a chance to beat around the bush. They directly used a rag to gag her mouth and dragged her out to be executed. The guards of the villa split into 4 groups to catch Granny Fong. When the sky turned dark, they finally found Granny Fong's tracks. Unfortunately, Granny Fong had already hanged herself on a tree. Dead. In the study, Marquis Gu's face turned cold. Huang Zhong was a martial artist. He was not smart when it came to fighting and scheming. However, when it came to examining corpses, he had stayed in piles of corpses before and had seen countless deaths. How could he not see that Granny Fong had been hung on a tree after she had breathed her last? Marquis Gu's expression was grave. So, she had someone kill her to silence her? Huang Zhong did not dare to say that she had been killed, but he was sure that Granny Fong was killed by him. Marquis Gu was silent for a long time. This Marquis knows. These days, strengthen the villa's security. Other than Granny Fong, everyone else is dismissed. Yes. Marquis Gu went to Madame Yao's room. Granny Fong, who was sick, was guarding the room. Her complexion was not very good. Marquis Gu said to her, "Go and rest. You don't have to come over tonight." Granny Fong did not immediately leave. Instead, she paused and boldly asked, "Marquis, must you bring Madame back to the capital?" "What's wrong?" Marquis Gu asked. Granny Fong said earnestly, "This servant knows that the Marquis's estate dotes on Madame. However, I'm afraid that other than Marquis, no one in the entire estate would welcome Madame back." Marquis Gu clenched his fists. "She is this Marquis's wife. This Marquis will protect her. You don't have to worry." Marquis Gu's eyes were like torches. "This Marquis will not let anything happen to her again." Granny Fong did not refute and bowed to Marquis Gu. This servant will leave now. Marquis Gu blocked the news of Madame Yao's courtyard and did not let Gu Yen and Gu Jinyu know. 2 hours later, Madame Yao slowly woke up. Marquis Gu sat by the bed and held her hand. He asked softly, "You're awake? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Madame Yao weakly shook her head and looked at him. "Where's my child? Where is my child?" At this point, Marquis Gu had nothing to hide. He held her hand tightly and took a deep breath. "She came by just now. She's right here." Madame Yao became agitated again. Marquis Gu was afraid that she would faint again, so he quickly held her shoulders and said, "Don't be agitated. Let me finish. She's fine. I've already found her. When you recover, I'll take you to see her." Madame Yao said without hesitation, "I'm fine." Marquis Gu said, I know. It's just that it's too late today. If you go over, you'll just disturb her rest. Tomorrow morning, I promise you." Only then did Madame Yao lie back down. She looked at him in confusion. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Marquis Gu was silent. Madame Yao frowned. "Is it that you don't want to acknowledge that child?" Marquis Gu was so frightened by her that his little heart trembled. His strong desire to live made him decide between telling the truth and lying. "There's no such thing. Don't think too much. She's my flesh and blood. How could I not want to acknowledge her? It's just, I've already made a mistake once. I don't want to make the same mistake a second time." Marquis Gu told Madame Yao about the medicine. "I wanted to wait until I got her blood and merged it with Yen Er's before telling you. However, Yen Er gets along very well with her. I think that if they weren't connected by blood, Yen Er would not like her so much." Madame Yao's expression froze. "Yen Er has also seen her?" Marquis Gu slowly nodded. "Yes, she's the little medicine boy from the Return of Spring Hall. Is there a portrait of her?" Madame Yao was impatient to see her daughter's appearance. Marquis Gu hesitated. I'm begging you, Marquis." This was the first time Madame Yao had begged him. For the sake of a stinky girl's portrait, Marquis Gu felt very uncomfortable. However, Marquis Gu still forced himself to draw it. It seemed that he could never refuse Madame Yao. However, when Madame Yao excitedly opened the scroll, her smile froze. "What are you drawing?" "Circles, crosses, 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 crosses." Was this neither round nor square pancake a face? Were the two asymmetrical green beans eyes? Were her nostrils pointed to the sky? Also, her mouth was crooked. Marquis Gu awkwardly coughed and said in a serious tone, "It's because she's ugly." He would never admit that his drawing was ugly. The talented Marquis Gu always had a secret that no one knew. That was, his calligraphy and drawing skills were terrible. Outsiders only knew that Marquis Gu's calligraphy could not be obtained, but they did not know that he did not dare let anyone see it. "You're the ugly one." Madame Yao threw the painting back into his arms and lifted the blanket to get out of bed. Marquis Gu immediately guessed what she wanted to do and calmly said, "Are you going to find Yen Er to ask for a portrait?" His drawing is not as good as mine." Madame Yao, who really wanted to beat him to death. In the end, Madame Yao managed to obtain her daughter's portrait. It was drawn by Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu did not tell Gu Jinyu the truth and only had her draw the appearance of the little medicine boy. Gu Jinyu's drawing skills were very good. Among the noble ladies in the capital, she was at least in the top 3. Marquis Gu brought the portrait to Madame Yao. When Madame Yao saw the little girl in the portrait, her expression froze. Currently, it was late at night. When Gu Jiao returned to the village, the sun had not yet set. Smoke rose from the chimneys in the village, and the smell of food filled the air. It was like the countryside. The Gu family had been very quiet recently. It was said that old Master Gu had lost his position as the village chief, and the Gu family's dozens of acres of farmland had been taken away. Those farmland had been allocated to the Gu family for planting. Although it was called farmland, the annual rent was only about 100 catties. It was no different from giving it away for free. This was because they had benefited from old Master Gu and Gu Das Hun. But now, it was all gone. The Gu family's days had become difficult. It was said that Gu Das Hun was about to be unable to pay his tuition fees. However, this had nothing to do with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao could not be bothered with them. Gu Jiao's back was burning with pain. She did not pay too much attention to it and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Little Jing Kong squatted in the backyard to feed the chicks. Halfway through, he grabbed a little yellow chick and walked over. Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao, little Chi doesn't eat. Is it sick? I already said that you don't know how to raise a chicken. See, you're going to raise it to death. It was Xiao Liulong's teasing voice. Little Jing Kong turned his head angrily, put his hands on his hips and stomped his feet. I didn't. Little Chi won't die. I'm raising it well. Let me see. Gu Jiao reached out her hand. Little Jing Kong put little Chi in Gu Jiao's palm with grievance. He said those words confidently, but his eyes were a little red. It was obvious that this little guy was really worried that little Chi would die because of him. Gu Jiao touched little Chick's belly and smiled. It's full. It can't eat any more. Huh? Little Jing Kong looked at little Chick with his big black eyes. He scratched his head and asked with a bitter face, Little Chi, did you steal food again? Little Chick. Gee. Little Jing Kong took back little Chick, stuck out his tongue at his bad brother-in-law, and put little Chi back into the chicken coop. Xiao Lulang looked at him with amusement. Then his gaze fell on Gu Jiao's face. He found that her face was paler than usual. Dinner is ready. Let's eat, Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang paused. Okay. Gu Jiao did not have a good appetite during dinner. Little Jing Kong held the bowl and chopsticks and asked her, Jiao Jiao, are you full too? Xiao Lulang looked at her with a complicated expression. Old Mrs. Han also looked at her. Gu Xiaoshan also looked up and said in surprise, Sister, why do you look so pale? Are you sick? Little Jing Kong put down the bowl and chopsticks, got up and stood on the stool. Nonsense. Jiao Jiao won't get sick. I'm not sick. Indeed, she was not sick. She was probably injured. It was painful, but she was used to this kind of pain in her previous life, so she did not take it to heart. She had forgotten that this body had a weak foundation, so how could it withstand a single whip from a general? At night, Gu Jiao's condition worsened. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark night sky, illuminating the room. Little Jing Kong was lying on his small pillow on the bed, drooling as he slept. Xiao Lulang opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the door. He hesitated for a while, then sat up. He pulled up the quilt that little Jing Kong kicked over, then put on his clothes and went to Gu Jiao's room. Gu Jiao used to lock the door. Little Jing Kong woke up in the middle of the night with a nightmare. He came to her with a pillow, but could not open the door. He was so scared that he cried for a long time. After that, Gu Jiao did not lock the door. Xiao Lulang pushed open the unlocked door, and a faint smell of blood assaulted his nose. Xiao Lulang frowned, paused, and stepped into the room. Gu Jiao. He called her, but she did not respond. So he went to the bed. He reached out and touched Gu Jiao's forehead. It was burning hot. Another bolt of lightning flashed, illuminating the room as bright as day. Xiao Lulang saw Shui Yi on the chair. His face changed. He picked up the bloody clothes and found that they were underwear. The cheap material was not soft, but it had been worn on her delicate skin. It was covered by the smell of blood, and it exuded a faint fragrance of a young girl. Xiao Liulong's ears were red. He saw the location of the blood and confirmed that Gu Jiao was injured on her back. He took a deep breath and planned to turn Gu Jiao over and get a doctor. His hand was just about to touch Gu Jiao when it was caught by Gu Jiao's cold little hand. She said arrogantly, "Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? Are you trying to take advantage of me?" Xiao Lulang was embarrassed and explained, "No, Don't take up too much," Gu Jiao mumbled and fell asleep in a daze. So, Was she talking in her sleep? Xiao Liulong's breathing quickened, and cold sweat seeped out. However, this was not the scariest thing. He turned his head casually, and another flash of lightning lit up the door, illuminating the old lady's gloomy figure. His hair stood on end. The old lady entered the room expressionlessly and put a bottle of medicine on Gu Jiao's table. Xiao Liulong's shirt was soaked. He couldn't tell if he was more afraid or guilty. After all, his hand was still on her chest. Although she was the one who pulled him over, it looked like he was the one who took the initiative. Great aunt, don't misunderstand. Aren't we a couple? What's there to misunderstand? The old lady put down the medicine and went out with a snort. Really? It was a dark and windy night. Hurry up and give her a little great-grandson. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115685636. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 90. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. How could Xiao Lulang know what the old lady was thinking? He also didn't know where she got the medicine, but now wasn't the time to think about that. Gu Jiao's condition was very serious, so she had to be treated immediately. Although the two of them had slept in the same bed before, that was when their clothes were still intact. But now, he had to lift her clothes up. Xiao Lulang calmed himself down and gently turned her over so she could sleep on her stomach. His slender jade-like fingertips slightly trembled as he lifted her slightly warm underwear and slowly lifted it up a bit. The whip mark was very long and extended from her right waist all the way to her left shoulder. He had no choice but to lift up all her clothes, revealing her smooth back. Her hands were on the pillow and her body was pressed into a beautiful shape unique to a young girl. In order to see her injury clearly, Xiao Lulang lit an oil lamp in the room, but Xiao Liulong's eyes inadvertently fell on a place where they shouldn't be. His breathing quickened as he quickly turned his face away, not daring to look around. After calming himself down again, he dipped his fingertips in the cool ointment and slowly applied it to the whip mark. She seemed to feel pain in her sleep, but she only slightly knit her brows. The whip mark was very fierce and didn't seem like it was made by a normal whip. She didn't seem like someone who would be bullied, at least not right now. Xiao Lulang couldn't help but wonder how she got this injury. Who did she offend? She didn't seem to care at all, as if she was used to it, which made him even more confused. Although she had a hard time growing up, it wasn't to the point where she was always beaten. Xiao Lulang was full of doubts as he finished applying the ointment and found a clean cloth to cover her wound. Then he pulled down her clothes and covered her with a blanket. After doing this, he planned to go back to the house, but the moment he stood up, he kicked something. There was a thud, as if a box had fallen to the ground. Then, the contents of the box rolled all over the ground. Xiao Lulang picked up the small wooden box and placed it on the table. He also picked up the items on the ground and placed them on the table one by one. Then, he looked at the items piled up on the table and was a little confused. What are these things? Also, why are there so many? These strange things covered the entire table. How could a small crappy box contain all of them? On the day that Gu Jiao fell into the water for the first time, he had come to Gu Jiao's house to look for something. He was very sure that she did not have this box at that time. First, it was the inexplicable injury, then there was the strange box. How many secrets was she hiding? Xiao Lulang looked at the sleeping Gu Jiao with a complicated expression. He suddenly felt a little annoyed, but he couldn't tell what he was annoyed about. But he did not have the habit of investigating other people's privacy. He did not look at the medicine on the table and put them one by one back into the small box. After he finished, he was amazed. What kind of box was this? It was too good at storing things. This time, he really planned to go back to the house. But he didn't put the small box down properly, so it fell off the table with a thud. Once again, the things inside rolled out in a clatter. But what was surprising was that the things that fell out this time were different from before. Are my eyes playing tricks on me, or? Xiao Lulang looked at the medicine on the ground strangely. For the first time, he doubted his eyes. He put the things back and planned to knock the box over again to verify it. But suddenly, Gu Jiao turned over on the bed. She pressed on her wound and let out a cry of pain. Xiao Liulong's movements paused. He suddenly realized that it was not right for him to go through the box in the middle of the night. He sighed and put the box back on the table. He turned around and went back into the house. The next day, Xiao Lulang woke up early. Gu Jiao's fever had mostly subsided, but she was still sleeping because she was too tired. Xiao Lulang did not wake her up. He went to the kitchen to make breakfast and told the old madam about it. Then he went to the academy. In the villa, Madame Yao, who had been waiting for the whole night, could not wait to ask Marquis Gu to bring her to the village. Little Jing Kong opened the door. Usually, the village did not lock the door. But today, Gu Jiao was sleeping. In order to prevent anyone from disturbing her, little Jing Kong locked the door. Little Jing Kong poked his round little head out from the crack of the door and looked curiously at Madame Yao and Marquis Gu at the door. He knew Madame Yao. She was the beautiful benefactress who always went to the temple to offer incense. He also knew Marquis Gu. He was the bad guy who ordered him and Zhao Jiao to be taken away. The two of them were together. Little Jing Kong thought seriously. He tilted his head and asked, "Benefactress, were you also taken away by him?" Madame Yao was puzzled. Marquis Gu was embarrassed. Last night, Madame Yao asked Marquis Gu to tell her a lot about Gu Jiao. But how could Marquis Gu dare to tell her everything? At least, he did not tell her that he ordered people to take away Gu Jiao and the little baby next to her. After that, he asked around and found out that the baby was adopted by Gu Jiao from the temple. She could not even raise herself, yet she got a little baby. He did not know what this girl was thinking. Madame Yao did not understand little Jing Kong's words. But she vaguely remembered that he was a little monk from the temple. She squatted down and looked at little Jing Kong gently. "I remember you. You are the little master from the temple. What is your name?" Little Jing Kong blinked his big black eyes and said cutely, "My name is Jing Kong. I am not the little master anymore. I am going down the mountain." Madame Yao patted his little head and smiled gently. "I am looking for Zhao Jiao. Is Zhao Jiao home?" Little Jing Kong was surprised. "Oh, you also know Zhao Jiao?" Madame Yao nodded. "Yes, I know her." Little Jing Kong lowered his little head and said sadly, "You might not be able to see her today. She is sick and cannot see guests." Madame Yao immediately became worried. "Why is she sick?" "Grandaunt said that she is too tired." Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said self-reproachfully, "She must be tired from taking care of me. After all, I eat so much." Marquis Gu felt a little guilty. That girl might have been injured by his whip yesterday, right? He did not dare to tell Madame Yao about this. Madame Yao looked pleadingly at little Jing Kong. Her tone was urgent, but her voice was very soft. "Can you let me in to see her? I promise I will not disturb her. I am not sure if Zhao Jiao wants to see you. Wait, I will go and ask her." Little Jing Kong closed the door and ran into the room. He came to Gu Jiao's bed and asked very softly, "Zhao Jiao, the benefactress from the temple came to see you. Do you want to see her?" Gu Jiao was fast asleep. After a while, little Jing Kong opened the door and said to Madame Yao, "Okay." Zhao Jiao did not object. "You can go in." Madame Yao went into the room full of excitement. Marquis Gu also wanted to go in. Little Jing Kong reached out a small hand to stop him. "You can't go in." Marquis Gu frowned. "Why?" Little Jing Kong raised his small chin. "Jiao Jiao did not agree to let you in." Marquis Gu was confused. Was this a question of whether she agreed or not? It was more like this black-hearted little monk did not ask at all, right? Marquis Gu said seriously, "If you have the ability, go and ask again. I don't believe that she will object." She was not awake yet. How could she object? Little Jing Kong thought for a while. Okay. Little Jing Kong ran into the room. "Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao, the big bad guy wants to see you." "Do you want to see him?" What did he mean by the big bad guy? It was fine that the girl was infuriating, but was the little monk she raised also so infuriating? Marquis Gu's face turned black. Little Jing Kong grabbed Gu Jiao's hand and shook it. "I know, you don't agree." He walked out with his head held high and said sternly to Marquis Gu, "Jiao Jiao has rejected you." Marquis Gu. In order to prevent someone from barging in, Little Jing Kong moved a small stool and sat at the door, staring at Marquis Gu like a tiger watching its prey. Marquis Gu. "What are you doing?" Little Jing Kong. "Staring at you." Marquis Gu. I will not go in." Little Jing Kong. "Then who knows?" Marquis Gu. "If you don't believe me, then lock the door." Little Jing Kong sternly said, "What if you climb over the wall? I will keep an eye on you to prevent you from doing anything bad." Marquis Gu. "In any case, I am the Marquis of Ding and in the capital. Is my reputation so bad that I need a little monk to keep an eye on me?" One big and one small, just like that, they stared at each other in front of the door. Yao She could not care about her husband at this time. Her heart was already filled with Gu Jiao. After she entered the room, she directly sat down beside Gu Jiao's bed. Gu Jiao's complexion was much better than last night, but it was still sickly pale. As the saying goes, the illness is in the child's body, but the pain is in the mother's heart. Yao She looked at her own child's illness and her heart ached. Looking at the room she was staying in, Yao She's eyes were red. Yao She held her hand again. The calluses and wounds on her hand were so abrasive that Yao She's palm hurt. Yao She could no longer hold back and silently sobbed. The matriarch went back to sleep in the room. When she woke up, she planned to go see how Gu Jiao was doing. In the end, when she entered the room, she saw Little Jing Kong sitting at the door like a small stone statue. He didn't go out? The matriarch was puzzled. Don't look at how Little Jing Kong was only a 3-year-old child. He was actually very busy every day. He continued his habit of doing morning and evening classes at the temple. After he woke up, he would recite Buddhist scriptures in his heart. After he finished reciting, he would go to the small forest behind the house to practice. There was once when the matriarch came out and saw him use his hands to grab her legs and wrap her around a thick tree. The matriarch almost thought that she had seen a little snake demon. He only practiced the basics. Occasionally, Gu Jiao would practice with him. If there was no one to practice with him, he would practice on his own. He was the type that did not mix in anything. After he finished practicing, he would go find his friends in the village. At noon, he would come back to eat. In the afternoon, he would help Gu Jiao do some work. Right now, it was time for him to go to the village to cause trouble for his friends. Little Jing Kong replied, "Jiao Jiao is sick. I have to accompany Jiao Jiao." He did not allow anyone to disturb his schedule. Only Jiao Jiao could do that. This answer was not unexpected. The matriarch said, "Oh." Her gaze went past him and fell on the strange man at the door. "Who is this?" she asked indifferently. Little Jing Kong swallowed back the words, "big bad guy," because he had promised Jiao Jiao that he would not tell his family that they were taken away. He did not want his great-aunt and bad brother-in-law to worry. "He's alone," Little Jing Kong said disdainfully. The matriarch thought, "How can I not recognize this person?" The matriarch did not think much of it and walked towards the door. At this moment, Marquis Gu also noticed the matriarch who was walking towards him. Marquis Gu was very clear about Gu Jiao's current situation. Not only did he know that she had adopted a little monk, but he also knew that she had a crippled husband and a great-aunt who came to seek refuge with them. Great-aunt was from the man's family. No, she was already so poor. Why did she keep bringing people into her family? Would she be able to get a grand secretary or an empress dowager? Didn't she know her own worth? Marquis Gu was furious when he thought of this. However, when the old lady got closer and he saw her face clearly, it wasn't that he didn't want to vent his anger, but that he couldn't breathe at all. Madam, madam, madam. Empress Dowager? Marquis Gu's knees went weak and he fell on the threshold, prostrating himself on the ground. The matriarch looked at the stranger who fell at her feet. She touched her chin and said, "There's no need for that." Little Jing Kong turned his head and said, "He's here to look for Jiao Jiao. The benefactress has already gone in. I'm here to guard and not let him in." There was nothing wrong with not letting a man into Jiao Jiao's house. The matriarch did not suspect him and did not bother to ask who Marquis Gu was. She yawned and went to the backyard to eat melon seeds. Marquis Gu held his head that almost fell off and got up. From his angle, he could clearly see the matriarch sitting on the bench outside the back door of the central room. She was wearing a country bumpkin's clothes and had an old village woman's headscarf wrapped around her head. Marquis Gu felt that she did not look like the Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager Zhuang married the late emperor at the age of 13. She was awarded the title of Virtuous Empress when she entered the palace. She commanded the harem for decades and held court for 17 years. Although she did not give birth to any children for the late emperor, she was the one who supported the current emperor to the throne. Her position in the harem and the court was unshakable. Ordinary people could not see Empress Dowager Zhuang. Marquis Gu was lucky enough to see her twice. The first time was at the palace banquet during the Hungry Ghost Festival. He only saw a figure from afar, but Empress Dowager Zhuang was so domineering that even the emperor next to her paled in comparison. The other time was when he went to the palace to visit the pregnant imperial concubine Shu. He bumped into Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage. He retreated to the side and bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. He only dared to take a glance, but that sharp gaze almost made him breathless on the spot. Empress Dowager Zhuang was not a good person. Otherwise, she would not have been called the Poison Empress and the Demon Empress behind her back. The matriarch in front of him, other than her appearance, did not have the slightest bit of Empress Dowager Zhuang's aura. "Great-aunt, are you secretly eating again?" Little Jing Kong suddenly realized that there was something wrong with the sound of the matriarch cracking the melon seeds. He turned around and saw that she had unknowingly picked up the jar of candied red bayberries. The matriarch decisively turned around and shook the back of little Jing Kong's head. "Don't talk nonsense. Where would I have it?" As she spoke, she grabbed a handful and stuffed it into her purse. By the time little Jing Kong came to collect the jar, she had already stolen a lot. Marquis Gu saw everything and was even more certain that this person was a foodie and not the vicious Empress Dowager Zhuang. Inside the room, Gu Jiao slowly woke up. She could have woken up earlier, but in order to let her sleep peacefully, Yao She made a curtain at the last minute to cover the window. The dim light really made it easy to sleep, so Gu Jiao slept until noon. She opened her eyes and found someone sitting by the bed. Alarm bells suddenly went off in her heart. She pulled out the dagger under the pillow and put it around the other person's neck. She put the tip of the dagger against the other person's neck and locked the other person in her arms. "Jiao Jiao, it's me," Yao Shi said. Gu Jiao heard the familiar voice and paused. The vigilance between her eyebrows disappeared. She took the dagger and let go of her. "Madam Gu?" Just now, Yao Shi was so shocked that she broke out in a cold sweat. She turned around and calmed down. She reached out to touch Gu Jiao's forehead. "How do you feel?" Gu Jiao subconsciously turned her head to avoid her hand. Yao Shi's expression froze and she said embarrassedly, "Did I scare you?" The light in the room was a bit dim. Gu Jiao did not see that her eyes were red and swollen, but she saw the blood on her neck. It was from when she was holding her hostage. She was in a high fever, so her strength was not as precise as usual. She had accidentally injured her. But her first reaction was not to notice her own injury. Instead, she paid attention to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked at her with a complicated expression. Yao Shi noticed Gu Jiao's gaze and used a handkerchief to cover the wound. She smiled and said, "I'm fine." "Jiao Jiao, how do you feel?" This was the second time she had asked. Gu Jiao thought for a bit before replying, "I'm also fine." "What is Madame Gu doing here?" "I came to see you," Yao Shi said as she walked to the window and pulled open the curtains. The strong light shined through the paper window. Gu Jiao slightly closed her eyes. After adjusting to the light, she said, "Madame Gu has just been poisoned. You should rest in bed." Yao Shi's gentle gaze fell on her small face. "I know. I came today because I have something to say to you." Gu Jiao looked at Yao Shi and suddenly found that there were tears in her eyes. Yao Shi stepped in front of her step by step and held her hand. She carefully looked at her thin face. Her body was very weak, but this time, she had a lot of strength. "Jiao Jiao, I am your mother." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964282/115650548. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 91. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. The novels that cannot be found online are all available here. Marquis Gu waited outside for a long time. He was about to fall asleep from waiting when Yao Shi finally came out. Yao Shi's face was full of tears. Her eyes were red and swollen. It seemed that she had cried quite hard. Marquis Gu strode forward and held her shoulder. "Wife." Yao Shi nodded and held back her tears. She turned to look at the matriarch in the backyard and bowed to her. "Elder, I'm leaving. Jiao Jiao, please take care of Jiao Jiao." Yao Shi had never entered the palace, so she naturally had not seen the matriarch. But before she came, she knew that Xiao Liulong's grandaunt was at home. She treated Jiao Jiao very well. The matriarch looked at her strangely and did not speak. Yao Shi had Marquis Gu bring down the pastries that he had forgotten in the carriage and personally handed them to the matriarch. "I made these pastries myself. I don't know if they are to your liking." "Oh," the matriarch's expression improved. The moment Yao Shi turned around, the matriarch suddenly gave her an N. Yao Shi was stunned for a long time before she reacted. The matriarch was responding to what she had just said. Was it because she saw the pastries that she was willing to acknowledge her? But it seemed that she did not acknowledge her. It was just a tone of voice. Yao Shi made pastries for everyone in Gu Jiao's family. There were also pastries in Little Jing Kong. After this, Yao Shi and Marquis Gu sat in the carriage to return to the manor. Marquis Gu could not wait to know what the mother and daughter talked about. What did that girl say? What did she say? Yao Shi recalled the scene after she had told the entire truth. Gu Jiao's reaction was very calm. At least, it was calmer than Yao Shi had imagined. It was as if what she had heard was not her past, but someone else's. Then she made a sound of confusion, and a trace of confusion flashed through her eyes. She was clearly in front of Yao Shi, but at that moment, Yao Shi felt that her daughter was very far away. From beginning to end, Gu Jiao only said one thing that confused Yao Shi. "If you were a bit earlier, even if it was half a year earlier, how good it would have been." Yao Shi did not understand. The Gu family's Sanlang couple had passed away 9 years ago. His daughter had gotten married a year ago, and she had also separated from the Gu family a year ago. Why did he hope that they would arrive half a year earlier? Did something happen half a year ago that they don't know about? Was she hurt? Yao Shi left with this sort of feeling. On the other side, Xiao Lulang asked for half a day's leave from the academy and went to the Huichun Hall to get some herbs. On the way back to the village in second Uncle Luo's ox cart, he happened to pass by Marquis Gu's carriage. The curtain of the carriage was blown up by the wind. Marquis Gu took a casual glance and unexpectedly saw Xiao Lulang on the ox cart. He was so shocked that he stumbled again and hit his head on the wall of the car. The bump that had gone down with much difficulty started to bulge again. He rubbed his eyes and wanted to take another look, but the ox cart had already gone far away. He stuck his head out of the car window and looked back eagerly. "What are you looking at?" Yao Shi asked. Marquis Gu retracted his head. Nothing. What happened today? Did he not check the almanac before leaving the house? First, he met an old woman from the countryside who looked like the Empress Dowager, and then he ran into a poor scholar who looked like the young Marquis of Zhao. The Empress Dowager was recuperating in the temporary imperial residence, and the young Marquis of Zhao Du had passed away long ago. No one could appear here. Marquis Gu muttered to himself, "I've really seen a ghost." Xiao Lulang also saw Marquis Gu's carriage. He did not look through the window, so he did not know who was sitting inside. But he saw and noticed the horse's horseshoe. Those were not normal horseshoes. They were used by the Marquis of the capital. The carriage seemed to have come from the village. Xiao Liulong's first reaction was to find him. Especially when the two carriages had already passed each other and were heading in opposite directions, the man in the carriage actually stuck his head out to look at him. Xiao Lulang did not turn his head. His gaze was cold as he said to second Uncle Luo, "Second Uncle Luo, please hurry. Jiaonyang is sick." "Okay." Second Uncle Luo agreed. After Yao Shi and Marquis Gu left, Gu Jiao was in a daze in the room for a while. She remembered that unconstrained dream. It was actually real. She really was the flesh and blood of the Marquis Fu. Oh, then that means I misunderstood him that day. Marquis Gu said he was her old man. So he meant it literally. She had thought he was looking for a beating. That was not the main point. That guy was so hateful. If he was beaten, then he was beaten. The main point was that dream. In the dream, Yao Shi did not come to her door to acknowledge her. It was Marquis Gu himself. Yao Shi and Gu Yen did not appear from beginning to end. Based on Yao Shi and Marquis Gu's relationship, it was not likely that Yao Shi had been abandoned. Combining Yao Shi and Gu Yan's illness, Gu Jiao guessed that Gu Yen and Yao Shi had died before she returned to the Marquis Fu. Gu Yen died of a heart attack. Yao Shi might not have been able to withstand the shock of her son's death. She might have died of illness or hanged herself. Without the protection of her mother and younger brother, she was like a rootless duckweed in the dream. She had the title of the Marquis Fu's daughter, but she lived like an outsider. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong raised his injured little finger and walked in pitifully. Gu Jiao came back to her senses and turned to look at little Jing Kong. "What's wrong?" Little Jing Kong walked in front of Gu Jiao and let Gu Jiao see his bleeding little finger. "It's injured." Gu Jiao pulled his little finger and looked at it. "How did you get injured?" "I smashed walnuts," little Jing Kong said pitifully. The walnuts were brought back by Gu Jiao from the market. Some people used vegetables to exchange for her mountain goods. Some people used eggs to exchange for her mountain goods. She was usually too lazy to care. Sometimes, she would be shocked by the things inside when she carried them back. Be careful next time. Gu Jiao did not forbid him from smashing walnuts again. It was inevitable for children to stumble. She was not a parent who would give up eating for fear of choking. Gu Jiao took out iodophor and cotton swabs from the medicine box to disinfect little Jing Kong's wound. "It's okay. It's not serious. You don't need to apply medicine." "I want to blow on it." Little Jing Kong blinked his big eyes and said. Gu Jiao blew on his wound. Little Jing Kong was not a delicate child. Compared to the pain from practicing martial arts, this small injury was not painful at all. He just wanted to rub on Jiao Jiao's wound. Little Jing Kong went out happily after he got the chance to blow on his wound. Gu Jiao threw the used cotton swabs into a special basket and put the unused iodophore back into the medicine box. She was so focused on cleaning little Jing Kong's wound that she did not look at it carefully. Now that she looked at it, Gu Jiao realized something was wrong. Why are there so many medicines suddenly? There were 2 types of medicines in her medicine box. One was first aid medicine, which she put in when she was a doctor in the research institute. She risked her life in the organization, and these medicines could save her life. The other type of medicine appeared after she came here. For example, Gu Yan's anti-heart failure medicine, Madame Yao's antidepressant medicine, and the anesthetic medicine that was used for Xiao Liulong's surgery. But no matter which one it was, she could use it to treat her illness. Now, these 6-flavor Rehmannia pill, 7 steps aphrodisiac tea, nourishing kidney energizing pill. These strange tonics were one thing, but in the most eye-catching position in the center, there was actually a box of bright, shiny, raw, medicinal products lying on the floor. Gu Jiao. Who touched her medicine box? Why did it suddenly become so indecent? After Madame Yao returned to the hot spring villa, she decided to tell Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu the truth. Marquis Gu hesitated. Isn't it too hasty? It was nothing to tell Gu Yan, but he liked Gu Jiao so much. If she told him that Gu Jiao was his biological sister, he would be surprised and happy. Jinyu was different. She had always been the only daughter in the family and was used to being pampered. If she suddenly found out that she was not her parents' biological daughter, she would definitely be devastated. Jinyu will be sad, Marquis Gu said softly. Madame Yao frowned. She will be sad, but won't Jiao Jiao be sad? Jiao Jiao also just found out that she is not Gu Sanlang and his wife's biological daughter. Marquis Gu said sternly, "How is that the same? What kind of family is the Gu family, and what kind of family is the Marquis family? That girl, Jiao Jiao will be very happy when she finds out about her identity, but Jinyu will be devastated." Happy? Madame Yao shook her head. I can't tell. Gu Jiao's reaction was so calm that it was almost cold. When she did not know about her identity, she was not so cold to her. When she suddenly became her mother, she seemed to have opened a door in her heart. Madame Yao thought that Gu Jiao was unable to accept her because her relationship with Gu Sanlang and his wife was too deep. She did not suspect anything. Marquis Gu saw that his wife's expression was not very good and quickly softened his tone, saying, Jiao Jiao is our child, and so is Jinyu. Jiao Jiao must know the truth because she has to return to the manor. Jinyu does not need to return to the Gu family, so why tell her? Madame Yao had seriously considered whether to send Jinyu back or not. To be honest, she had raised Jinyu for so many years and had long developed feelings for him. She naturally could not bear to send Jinyu away. Moreover, Gu Sanlang and his wife had already passed away. Jinyu would be an orphan if he returned. But the final decision was not made by them, but by Jinyu and the Gu family. After all, Jinyu was a member of the Gu family. Even if his parents were not here, his grandparents and uncles were. They had the right to take Jinyu back. Then there was Jinyu himself. If he insisted on going back, she could not stop him. Madame Yao treated Gu Jiao the same. She completely respected Gu Jiao's decision. When it came to the issue of recognizing each other, she treated the 2 children equally. But in Marquis Gu's eyes, Gu Jiao returning to the manor was a gain, but Jinyu returning to the manor was a loss. This was a bit unfair to Jinyu. I do not agree, Marquis Gu said. Madame Yao said, the more you want to recognize Jiao Jiao, the more the Gu family wants to recognize Jinyu. Marquis Gu thought, I don't want to recognize that girl. Why would I want to recognize her? To beat myself? Marquis Gu only said half of the Gu family's matters. He only said that Gu Jiao's childhood had not been easy, but he did not dare to say that the Gu family had bullied her terribly. He was afraid that Madame Yao would be sad. But if he did not mention it now, He was afraid that Madame Yao would fall into that family's trap. Marquis Gu deliberated for a moment, then said, I think that family has some bad intentions. It's best if we don't interact with them. What happened? Madame Yao asked. Marquis Gu told her about how the Gu family had used Gu Yu to replace Gu Jiao. There was such a thing. Madame Yao frowned. Then didn't Jiao Jiao suffer a lot in their home? Marquis Gu quickly said, I've already taught them a lesson. Madame Yao was now impatient to recognize her daughter. Thinking of the hardship she had suffered these years, Madame Yao wished she could give her life to her. Marquis Gu coughed lightly and said, Look at the Gu family's situation. We cannot let Jinyu go back and suffer. Madame Yao said, Of course I won't let her suffer. She is also my child. There were times when she had not treated Jinyu well. She did not understand why she could not be a good mother. Now that she knew the truth of her birth, she was relieved. Jinyu was not her biological child, so she could not dote on Jinyu as much as she did on Gu Yen. But from today onwards, she would continue to dote on Jinyu as a foster mother, with the love of Gu Sanlang and his wife. Madame Yao said, Regardless of whether Jinyu returns to the Gu family or not, she will still be my child. Hearing Madame Yao say this, Marquis Gu was relieved. As long as Madame Yao did not insist on sending Jinyu away, Jinyu would not leave them. That night, the husband and wife called Gu Yen and Gu Jinyu to their room and confessed to them about the mistake. Marquis Gu said seriously, You also know that child. He is the little medicine boy from Return of Spring Hall. As expected, Gu Yan's eyes lit up. Originally, when he heard that Gu Jinyu was not his biological sister, he did not have much of a reaction. But when he found out that his sister was Gu Jiao, he was so happy that he could fly. Although Gu Yen forced himself to remain seated, Marquis Gu already had an image in his mind. Gu Yen raised his hand like a charlatan, running around the room excitedly. Marquis Gu held his forehead. Stop thinking. In contrast to Gu Yan's excitement, Gu Jinyu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She did not expect that she was not her parents' biological daughter. That wild girl that everyone looked down on was the real one. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/115646208. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 92. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with substance that cannot be found online are all available here. Gu Jinyu felt as if she had fallen from heaven to hell overnight. Shock, fear, sadness, and the grievance of losing her parents intertwined in her heart. It was like a huge net that trapped her. Mother wants to find a time to arrange for you to meet with the Gu family. Madame Yao said a lot more after that, but Gu Jinyu did not hear a single word. Yao Shi gently took her hand and allowed her to rest properly. That night, Gu Jinyu lay on the luxurious and soft bed. It was the first time she had experienced sleepless nights. A strong wind blew outside the room, rustling the branches and leaves. Gu Jinyu lifted the blanket and got out of bed. She opened the door and a gust of wind blew her robes and hair. Ah! Miss, why did you come out? It's so windy. Be careful not to catch a cold. The young servant girl on night duty hurried forward to help Gu Jinyu into the room. Gu Jinyu calmly said, I can't sleep. I want to go out for a walk. Ah, but it's so late. The young servant girl said. Seeing that Gu Jinyu had no intention of returning to the room, she swallowed her words of advice. Then miss, please wait. I'll get you a cloak. Okay. Gu Jinyu nodded. The young servant girl found a soft cloak from the wardrobe and put it on Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu looked down at the cloak she was wearing and suddenly murmured, 5 flowers, a golden fur coat, the wind will be exchanged for fine wine. The young servant girl asked in a daze, Miss, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly reciting poetry? Do you want to compose a poem? The young servant girl did not understand poetry. The original Yu Ru did, but unfortunately, Yu Ru had been chased away by Gu Yen. Gu Jinyu lifted a corner of the cloak and murmured, Do you know what a golden fur coat is? It's what I'm wearing. Some people can't afford this kind of clothing even if they don't eat or drink for several lifetimes. The young servant girl understood. She giggled and said, Of course. Miss is the Marquis's daughter. You can't be compared to those commoners outside. What's your name? Gu Jinyu asked. My name is Xiao Li. The young maid replied. After Yu Ru left, Gu Jinyu's servants were selected by Marquis Gu. The ones who were transferred over recently were all unfamiliar faces. Are you from a nearby village? Gu Jinyu asked again. Yes. The young maidservant answered with her big, bright eyes. Gu Jinyu looked her up and down. You look younger than me. How could your family bear to let you be a servant? The young maidservant laughed mischievously. Young miss, you must be joking. Being able to enter the manor as a maidservant is a wonderful job that many people in our village can't even dream of. This servant has 4 sisters at home, and this servant's job is the best. Gu Jinyu was stunned. The 4 sisters. All have to do something? Don't you have an older brother? The young maidservant nodded and said, There is an elder brother and a younger brother. The elder brother is going to get married, and we are trying to get betrothal gifts for him. The younger brother is going to get married in the future, and he has to get his share as well. However, if we all marry well, the betrothal gifts we receive should be enough for them to get married. There was no complaint in her tone, as if she was born to live for her brothers. Gu Jinyu felt that her worldview had been turned upside down. She had been raised in the Marquis Fu since she was young. She had 3 elder brothers and 1 younger brother. Although the younger brother was mischievous, he only bullied her and did not squeeze her dry. The 3 elder brothers were all young and promising. Even if they did not like their branch, they had never thought of sacrificing their stepsister to pave the way for them. Gu Jinyu heard the young maidservant talk about some of the family matters and found that Marquis Gu and Yao She were the best parents in the world. She could not bear to part with such good parents, and she could not bear to part with everything in the Marquis Fu. The next day, Marquis Gu and Yao She came to see her. Her eyes were swollen like walnuts. The young maidservant explained, Young miss cried the entire night last night. You can leave, Yao She said. Yes. The young maidservant fearfully retreated. She was very worried that she had not served her young miss well and had caused her to be sad. She did not want to be chased out of the manor. Marquis Gu and Yao She came to the bed. Marquis Gu stood by the side, and Yao She sat down on the edge of the bed. Mother, Gu Jinyu threw herself into Yao She's arms. Large drops of tears fell onto Yao She's chest. Don't abandon daughter. Daughter can't bear to part with you. Can't bear to part with father. Daughter doesn't want to leave you. Gu Jinyu's crying completely messed up Marquis Gu's heart. His heart ached as he said, Silly child, when did father and mother say that they did not want you? Your mother and I have already discussed it. The decision is yours. If you want to go back, Gu Jinyu sobbed and interrupted him, Daughter will not go back. Daughter will be filial to mother and father for the rest of my life. Poor child. If she went back, she would be an orphan. Yao She could not bear it either, especially after learning that Gu Sanlang and his wife had doted on Jiao Jiao so much. She could not treat Gu Jinyu unfairly. She caressed Gu Jinyu's face and said, But, even if you don't go back to the Gu family, you should go burn incense for your birth parents. Yes. Gu Jinyu agreed with tears in her eyes. Yao She nodded in relief. She stood up and went with Marquis Gu to visit Gu Yen. Gu Jinyu suddenly grabbed her sleeve and said in a choked voice, "It's my fault. I've occupied elder sister's identity for so many years and even snatched away the best mother and father in the world. When elder sister comes back, I will definitely dote on elder sister well. Along with what father and mother have given me all these years, I will dote on elder sister." Yao She patted her head. The husband and wife went to visit Gu Yen again. Gu Yen did not sleep the entire night. He was as excited as a little bullfrog and croaked the entire night. Yuya was almost annoyed to death by him. The quiet and indifferent young master was still the cutest. Gu Yen was so happy that he even forgot to roll his eyes at his father. Gu Yen said, "She likes me." Yao She looked at her son dotingly. "Mother knows." Gu Yen said again, "I also like her." Yao She smiled and nodded. "Yes." Gu Yen sat up straight. "I want to go find her." Yao She held her son's hand and softly said, "Give her some time to digest this." Gu Yen suppressed the 10,000 little ants in his heart. "Oh, okay." In the village, Gu Jiao did not hide her identity from her family. Xuaningxiang was also present. Because Gu Jiao was injured, the matriarch could not eat Xiao Liulong's cooking. Thus, she called Xuaningxiang over to help cook. After she finished cooking, the matriarch asked her to eat with Go Hua. The old madam asked about Yao Shi and Marquis Gu at the dining table, so Gu Jiao casually told her about their identities and the fact that she had been swapped. Everyone in the room, except for Go Hua, understood that Gu Jiao was actually Gu Jinyu, and Gu Jinyu was actually Gu Jiao. Their identities had been swapped. However, Gu Jiao's tone was too calm. Those who did not know would have thought that she had said something like eating cabbage tonight. Xuaningxiang's jaw almost dropped. The neighbor that she had been living with for so long was actually the Marquis's daughter? She was eating at the Marquis's daughter's home. Xuaningxiang felt that she could not hold her chopsticks steadily. She looked at the matriarch, Xiao Lulang, and little Jing Kong. She found that other than being surprised when they heard that Gu Jiao had been swapped, they were very calm. Don't you think that Zhao Nyong's identity is very powerful? Her father is the Marquis. The matriarch. She once beat up the most powerful man in the country of Zhao. A mere Marquis is nothing. Xiao Lulang. Second-rank Marquis. He only has a title but no real power. Little Jing Kong. A big bad guy who only knows how to bully women and children. How powerful can he be? Xuaningxiang stared at the table full of calm neighbors, dumbfounded. She seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. After dinner, Xuaningxiang asked Gu Jiao to go back to the room and lie down. She would clean up. Gu Jiao was indeed a little weak, so she did not argue with her. After thanking her, she went back to the room. Xuaningxiang went to wash the dishes. Little Jing Kong went to walk the dogs. Xiao Lulang boiled the medicine he got from Huichun Hall and brought it to Gu Jiao. The door was open. He hesitated for a moment, but still knocked lightly. Gu Jiao closed the medicine box and looked up. "What's the matter?" Xiao Liulong's gaze swept past her small medicine chest without leaving a trace. He said with a stern expression, "The medicine is ready. It's for reducing fever." "Oh." Gu Jiao pushed the small medicine box to the side and reached out to take the medicine from him. She didn't like to drink bitter medicine, but seeing that he had personally brewed it, she still forced herself to drink it without leaving a single drop behind. She returned the medicine bowl to him. "Thank you." Xiao Lulang said lightly, "It's nothing." Gu Jiao looked at his back and said with a smile, "I'm talking about the medicine you applied for me last night." Xiao Liulong's back stiffened. When Gu Jiao woke up, she found that her wound had been treated. Her whole body smelled like medicine, not to mention that there was a piece of cloth covering her wound on her back. The old lady would not be able to do such a meticulous thing. Xiao Lulang didn't turn his head, but he could feel her gaze on his back. He couldn't help but think of her naked back and the curved shape of her body pressed against his. Seeing this kind of thing at a young and vigorous age really made him want to die. Xiao Liulong's throat became dry. He calmed himself down and said with a serious face, "It's nothing." After he finished speaking, he took the empty medicine bowl and ran out with his hands and feet. Looking at his back as he ran away, Gu Jiao sighed and muttered, "It seems like he saw a lot." Today, Xuening Xiong helped Gu Jiao apply the medicine. The door was actually closed, but Xiao Lulang looked at the closed door and felt uncomfortable. He grabbed a bucket and went to the entrance of the village to get water. When Gu Jiao was halfway through applying the medicine, someone knocked on the door. "I'll go take a look." Xuening Xiong put down the medicine and walked out of Gu Jiao's room. He closed the door for Gu Jiao and opened the door to the central room. He looked at the middle-aged man with a scholarly aura and asked, "Who are you?" Principal Li smiled. "I am the principal of Qianxiong Academy. My surname is Li. May I ask if this is Xiao Liulong's home?" When Xuening Xiong heard that it was the place where Xiao Lulang studied, he politely said, "So it's the principal. Are you looking for Lulang? He went to get water." When you came over from the entrance of the village, did you not see him?" Principal Li's carriage stopped at the entrance of the village, but he walked over. The sky was a bit dark, so he did not pay too much attention to it. Xuening Xiong said, "Wait, I'll go find him." Principal Li suddenly stopped Xuening Xiong. May I ask if Jianyong is here?" Xuening Xiong tilted his head. Gu Jiao invited Principal Li into the central room and poured a bowl of herbal tea for him. Little Jing Kong was a bit heaty these days, so Gu Jiao bought some chameleon plant from the mountain and boiled it for him to drink. Principal Li had never drunk such a disgusting tea before, but he still forced himself to drink a big bowl of it. Gu Jiao saw that he liked it so much, so she poured him another big bowl. Principal Li, who found it hard to refuse such kindness, was speechless. After drinking 3 big bowls of tea in a row, Gu Jiao shook the teapot and said, "There's no more." Principal Li, who almost vomited, thought, "Thank God, there's no more." Gu Jiao asked politely, "Is there a reason why Principal Li specially came here today?" "You visited my mother many times, and I haven't thanked you properly yet," Principal Li said and handed the bundle in his hand to Gu Jiao. "The peach tree in the backyard has borne fruit, and my mother asked me to bring some to you." Gu Jiao took the bundle. "Thank you, old madam." Principal Li said gently, "My mother is old, and sometimes she doesn't even know how many sons she has, but she always remembers you." "How many?" Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. Principal Li blurted out his family's affairs, and he smiled awkwardly. "I have 4 older brothers, and my mother had me when she was old." No wonder Principal Li was not even 40 years old, but old Madam Li was already so old. "My brothers are all in the capital, and I haven't seen them for many years." Principal Li didn't say anything else. Gu Jiao didn't ask any more questions. Principal Li said, "There's another thing about Lulang today." Gu Jiao asked, "What's wrong with my husband?" Principal Li replied, "I'm sure you've heard that he passed the imperial examination, but there's something else that I'm not sure if you know about. He originally had the chance to become a Junior 3 scholar, but someone bribed the examiner to change his script, causing him to hand in a blank script for the 3rd round. Gu Jiao's gaze turned cold. This was the college entrance examination in ancient times, and there were actually people who cheated. Principal Li continued, "Retaking the examination is a serious matter, and I'm not sure why he didn't retake the examination. Maybe he didn't want to, or maybe the government intervened." Principal Li had a student who worked in the examination hall of Pingcheng Prefecture, so he was able to find out some information, but he didn't know everything. Principal Li asked, "Did he mention this to you?" Gu Jiao shook her head. "No. His character is not strange, he keeps everything to himself," Principal Li said. "I asked him about it after the incident, but he refused to say. Actually, it's not a big deal that he didn't get into the Junior 3 scholar examination. As long as he passes the county-level examination, he will have the opportunity to take part in the provincial examination, and that's the real beginning." Gu Jiao asked, "But, now that the atmosphere had reached this point, it would be unreasonable if there wasn't a but." Principal Li sighed and said, He doesn't seem to be very willing to take the provincial examination. After thinking for a while, he corrected her, "That's not right." When I mentioned the provincial examination, he didn't have much of a reaction, but when I mentioned that he would have to go to the capital after the provincial examination, his face darkened. I don't know if this is accurate, but it seems like he didn't study hard in the past because he wanted to avoid going to the capital to take the imperial examination. He didn't want to go to the capital? Gu Jiao rubbed her chin and fell into deep thought. Principal Li went to look for Gu Jiao to understand the situation, but he didn't get much out of it, so he left helplessly. He really didn't want such a good seedling to waste his talent in a small village. As he was thinking about this, Principal Li accidentally bumped into Go Hua, who had rolled out of the courtyard. Go Hua rolled down from the haystack. Fortunately, he managed to stop himself from bumping into someone, otherwise, he would have rolled into a puddle. Principal Li hurriedly picked the little guy up from the ground and patted the dust off his body. "Are you okay? Did I hurt you?" Go Hua looked at him with wide, dark eyes. Go Hua had been teething recently, so he had a lot of saliva. As he drooled, he looked at Principal Li in confusion. Suddenly, he opened his small mouth and called out, "Father!" Principal Li's body trembled. Xuaningxiang, who came out of Gu Jiao's courtyard, also trembled. Go Hua was learning how to speak. When he saw a woman, he would call her mother, but he hadn't called her father yet. After all, he didn't have a father. Xuaningxiang's heart was filled with awkwardness. She wanted to find a hole to bury Go Hua and herself. She quickly walked over and carried Go Hua over. She said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry. This child doesn't know anything. Please don't take offense." Principal Li smiled. It's fine." Xuaningxiang hurriedly carried Go Hua away. Unexpectedly, Go Hua turned his head and called out to Principal Li, "Father." Xuaningxiang was so embarrassed that she wanted to cry. "Child, don't mention that your father is dead. Even if he isn't, you can't be the principal. What are they? What are you? Where did you get the ability to blindly call someone your father? Calling you Gua, you really do have the guts of a dog." Xuaningxiang carried her son and ran back to the house. She closed the door and bolted it. Principal Li laughed and shook his head. "Father. In this lifetime, he probably wouldn't be able to be a father." Xuaningxiang carried her son back to the house and placed him on the bed. She sternly corrected him, "Go Hua, you don't have a father." "Go Hua, father." Xuaningxiang, "Not father." "Father." Xuaningxiang, "I said I don't have a father. You're not allowed to call me father." "I don't." Go Hua crawled out, "Father." Xuaningxiang was about to go crazy because of her son. "If you blindly call someone your father again, I won't be able to hold down your father's coffin." Xuaningxiang was so angry that she kept shaking her pillow. As she shook it, a hard object fell out and smashed onto the chair. Xuaningxiang picked up the object. At first, she couldn't remember what it was. After thinking for a long time, she frowned. Isn't this? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115615001. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 93. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. When Xiao Lulang came back from fetching water, Gu Jiao was sitting in the living room waiting for him. Gu Jiao said, "Dean Li came just now." Xiao Lulang took the water to the backyard and poured it into the water jar. I met him at the entrance of the village. Gu Jiao came to the back door of the living room and lightly leaned on the door. "Aren't you going to ask what he said to me?" "What did he say?" Xiao Lulang casually asked. Gu Jiao lightly said, "He said you have a concubine in the capital." Cough. Xiao Lulang almost choked to death. No. No what? No concubine. It was not that he had never been to the capital, but he did not have a concubine. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Oh, when a normal person hears that sentence, their first reaction would be, "I have never been to the capital, how could I have a concubine in the capital?" You only denied the second point. So, you have been to the capital? Xiao Lulang calmly said. So what if I have? Gu Jiao asked, "How did you get a pass to the capital?" The capital was the capital of Zhao country. The most important people of Zhao country all lived there. The security was very tight and normal people could not get a pass. For a commoner like Xiao Lulang, unless he passed the provincial examination, it was impossible for him to enter the capital. Then what about you? Xiao Lulang did not choose to directly answer Gu Jiao's question. Instead, he changed the topic and pointed the spearhead at her. "What is the matter with your box?" Gu Jiao's pupils shrank. Good fellow. He learned to use her secrets to block her mouth? Xiao Lulang walked towards her step by step with his cane and stopped half a step in front of her. "Tell me where you got your box, and I will tell you how I got a pass to the capital." This was the first time he was so close to Gu Jiao. His breath fell on Gu Jiao's head. Gu Jiao found that he had not only grown taller. Gu Jiao could feel his youthful aura. It was clean and pure, but not only that, he was slowly growing up, he was about to become a real man. His aura was cold and dangerous, like a ferocious beast bearing its fangs. Gu Jiao blinked and suddenly reached out her little index finger to poke his small chest. Xiao Lulang. Ah. I didn't mean. Xue Ningxiang, who had just arrived at the door, covered her face, indicating that she did not see anything. Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao's posture was indeed a little too intimate. At first glance, she thought that Xiao Lulang had pressed her against the wall and was about to do something to her. It felt good. Gu Jiao poked him again. Xiao Lulang. His chest was filled with the soft touch of her fingertips. Xiao Liulong's beastly aura disappeared, and he went back to the room with red ears. Xue Ningxiang was in a daze. Ah. This is the first time I've seen Xiao Lulang like this. What's the matter? Gu Jiao walked over casually. Xue Ningxiang's gaze fell on her face. They were obviously doing something intimate, but why was Xiao Lulang the one blushing and not this girl? Was there a mistake somewhere? That. However, Xue Ningxiang did not forget about the matter at hand. She handed a metal tablet in her hand to Gu Jiao. "This is for you." "For me?" Gu Jiao took it and found that it was a bronze metal tablet. There were no words on the tablet, only a strange emblem. "Yes." Xue Ningxiang nodded and said with some embarrassment, "I found this at the place where Xiao Lulang fainted. At that time, you were too busy picking him up and didn't notice this in the bushes. I secretly hid it and planned to sell it at the market, but my mother-in-law said that it was neither gold nor silver, so it couldn't be sold for much, so I put it aside. If it wasn't for today." Xue Ningxiang awkwardly skipped the matter of go while acknowledging his father, which made her so angry that she shook the pillow. It suddenly fell out of the pillow. I forgot that I had seen such a thing. A year ago, Xiao Lulang fainted at the entrance of the village, and it was Xue Ningxiang and Gu Jiao who found him together. Xue Ningxiang went to the village to call for help, and Gu Jiao directly carried him back. When Xue Ningxiang brought people over, Xiao Liulong's figure was long gone. However, Xue Ningxiang saw a heavy tablet left in the bushes. Xue Ningxiang said, "I'm not sure if this belongs to Xiao Lulang, why don't you ask him?" Gu Jiao suddenly thought of something. On the first day she transmigrated, Xiao Lulang sneakily rummaged through her room. Could it be that he was actually looking for this thing? "Ha ha ha, young man, Let's see who reveals whose secret first. Gu Jiao took the bronze tablet back to her room. She was very sure that Xiao Lulang had touched her medicine chest, possibly last night. Her medicine chest could not be opened by outsiders, but she was confused by the fever last night and forgot to lock it. Did those strange tonic pills and birth control products appear after Xiao Lulang touched her medicine chest? Gu Jiao stared fiercely at the medicine chest. If you dare to make such a mess appear again, I'll burn you. A cold wind blew, and the medicine chest was as quiet as a chicken. After breakfast, Gu Jinyu packed her things and prepared to leave. She had promised Madame Yao that she would burn incense for Gu Sanlang and his wife. Before leaving, she went to see Madame Yao and Marquis Gu. If I go to the village, I should be able to see elder sister, right? I want to see her. Madame Yao did not object. But Marquis Gu was worried that Gu Jiao's temper was too fierce and would bully Gu Jinyu. After all, the two children had some friction before. Marquis Gu had Huang Zhong and an experienced nanny accompany her. Gu Yan had been excited the entire night and had only fallen asleep during breakfast. He was now sprawled on the bed, snoring loudly. He was completely unaware that he had missed the opportunity to go to the countryside. Gu Jinyu sat in the carriage. The servant girl and nanny sat in another carriage. Huang Zhong led a few guards on horseback to protect Gu Jinyu. On the way, Gu Jinyu lifted the curtain of the carriage window and looked at Huang Zhong, who was riding beside her. She said amiably, "Lord Huang, you've seen my elder sister. What kind of person is she?" "Ah, this." Huang Zhong could not say. An unfilial daughter with a violent temper who pressed the Marquis to the ground? Huang Zhong clenched his fists and coughed a few times. "Although I've seen eldest miss, I haven't spoken to her." Gu Jinyu smiled regretfully. "Me too. I haven't spoken to her seriously. If I had known that she was my elder sister, I would not have treated her that way. I'm so foolish. I don't even recognize my own elder sister." Huang Zhong thought, "She's not your biological daughter. Of course you don't recognize her. Look at the young master. Didn't he get close to eldest miss after just one time? It's not the same whether you're her biological daughter or not." He did not dare to say these words. Currently, the matter of the two daughters had not spread in the manor. Only he and his masters knew the truth. But the truth could not be concealed. It all depended on how the Marquis and Madame told the outside world. Huang Zhong had been here several times and had already heard all the news in the village, including the location of Gu Sanlang and his wife's grave. Gu Sanlang had died a violent death. According to the village rules, he was not allowed to be buried in the ancestral grave. His grave was very far from the Gu family's treasured land. Madame Su was buried next to him. It was said that Madame Su had requested it before she died. The carriage stopped at the entrance of the village. The procession was rather grand. In addition, the fairy-like Gu Jinyu had come. It inevitably attracted the attention of the villagers. Gu Jinyu had brought along an aide and was accompanied by a respectable maid and granny. The villagers had never seen a daughter of a wealthy family from the city. Their eyes could not move. "Miss, be careful of your steps." The village roads were not easy to walk on. Huang Zhong was afraid that this delicate daughter would trip and fall. Gu Jinyu held on tightly to the maid's arm. This kind of bumpy dirt road was really a waste of her wealthy feet. After the group of people walked away, the villagers began to discuss. Who are they? I don't know them. That man seemed to have come to our village a few times and asked around about the Gu family. Look, they're heading towards Gu Sanlang's grave. Could it be the Su family? The Gu family did not have such respectable relatives. The villagers could only guess that it was the Su family. Madame Su was not from the village. Her family was better off than the Gu family and could be considered half a city dweller. But after Madame Su passed away, the Su family had cut off all ties with the Gu family. When Gu Jinyu arrived at the grave, she saw a person standing at the grave. She was dressed in coarse hemp and had a slender figure. She wore a bamboo hat and carried a small basket on her back. Sis? Gu Jinyu asked tentatively. Gu Jiao paused in the act of bending down to remove weeds. She calmly straightened her body and turned her head to look at Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu immediately revealed a joyful smile. Sister, it's really you. Gu Jiao glanced at her strangely. She ignored her and continued to bend down to remove weeds. Ever since Gu Jiao had discovered that there was a lot of weeds at the grave on the anniversary of Gu Sanlang and his wife's death, Gu Jiao had regularly come over to remove weeds. Gu Jinyu was ignored, but she did not back down. She let go of the maid's hand and walked towards Gu Jiao. However, her pair of exquisite embroidered shoes simply couldn't walk on the path of the tombstone, and she almost sprained her ankle. Miss, be careful. The young maidservant and the old maid both supported her. I'm fine. Gu Jinyu glanced awkwardly at Gu Jiao and motioned for them to let go. After that, she became more careful. She lifted her clean skirt and came to Gu Jiao's side. She extended her hand to Gu Jiao. Sister, let me do it. I'm not your sister. Gu Jiao said, you can't do it either. This kind of dirty work was not something a spoiled young lady could do. Gu Jiao would only use a shovel if she needed one. She would directly do the weeds that she did not need. Gu Jinyu copied her and reached out to pull the weeds. The result was obvious. The maid and granny did not know the truth, but the servants of the manor always knew the rules. They would not ask about things that they should not ask about. But although they did not ask, they were very curious. This little village girl was so arrogant. Their miss had lowered herself to call her sister. Not only did she not appreciate it, she even gave their miss a hard time. You can leave first. Gu Jinyu ordered. The maid and granny retreated 3 feet away. You can leave too. Gu Jinyu said to Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong, who was pulling weeds, clapped his hands and also retreated far away. Only Gu Jiao and Gu Jinyu were left on the grave mound. Gu Jiao continued to pull weeds as if no one else was around. Gu Jinyu placed the straw mat and paper money she had brought on the ground. She burned the paper money with a match and knelt on the straw mat, kowtowing 3 times to Gu Sanlang and Madame Su. After that, Gu Jinyu maintained her kneeling position. As she burned the paper money, she murmured, I heard that they were good people when they were alive. They were very good to sister. Gu Jiao finally reacted. She said calmly, Does calling them father and mother burn your mouth? Gu Jinyu choked. Gu Sanlang and Madame Su were very good parents. If they knew that the child was swapped, they would be very sad. They would want to hear their biological daughter call them father and mother. Gu Jiao glanced at her. You don't have to burn paper money. I can still afford to burn this little bit of paper money. Gu Jinyu lowered her head and said in a low voice, Sister, do you hate me? I know it's my fault. I stole your identity, stole your parents, stole everything that should have belonged to you. You should hate me. I don't blame you. Gu Jiao ignored her. The person who had everything stolen from her had already passed away. Furthermore, it was not appropriate to steal. Gu Jinyu was innocent. She was also the one who had been swapped. She did not hate her, nor did she like her. This person had nothing to do with her. Gu Jinyu did not understand Gu Jiao's thoughts. She only felt that Gu Jiao was blaming her. It was understandable. After all, she had taken advantage of her. She said sincerely, Sister, don't worry. I won't fight with you. You are the eldest miss of the Marquis's household. When you return to the Marquis's household, I will move the courtyard out and return it to you. But father and mother have raised me for so many years. Sister, please allow me to be filial to father and mother. Gu Jiao was a little irritated. Are you done? If you are, hurry up and leave. Gu Jinyu pleaded, Sister, come back to the Marquis's household with me. I'm not going back. Sister, what will it take for you to be willing to go back with me? Tell me. I'll agree to anything. Gu Jiao looked at her and smiled faintly. Including you leaving the Marquis's household with nothing? Gu Jinyu's expression froze. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8264286/115612040. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 94. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found online can be found here. Gu Jiao was taller than Gu Jinyu. Even though Gu Jinyu was wearing thick-soled embroidered shoes, Gu Jiao could still look down on her oppressively. Gu Jiao said calmly, "If you don't even have this much sincerity, don't try to persuade me to go back." Gu Jinyu's eyes reddened. "If you want to chase me away," Gu Jiao said coldly, "I don't care. Take whatever you want. Just don't bother me." This was the most Gu Jiao had ever said to a stranger. She was only so patient with people she cared about. After that, Gu Jiao used her strength to demonstrate what it meant to treat Gu Jinyu as heir. Gu Jinyu forced herself to burn all the paper money. Until the end, she still couldn't call Gu Sanlang and his wife father and mother in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Jinyu had been kneeling for too long. Her legs were numb. It was the young maid and granny who helped her up. She bowed to Gu Jiao. "I'll leave first. I'll visit you again when I'm free." Not long after she left, little Jing Kong skipped over from another path. "Jiao Jiao." He saw Gu Jinyu not far away and asked curiously, "Eh? Who are they?" Gu Jiao said, "Strangers." "Oh, strangers?" Then little Jing Kong didn't have to bother about them. "Why are you here?" Gu Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong said, "I went home and you weren't around. Grand-aunt said you came to visit the grave." Little Jing Kong had to do morning classes, practice martial arts, and make trouble for his friends in the village every morning. After making trouble for his friends, he went home and found that Gu Jiao wasn't around. So, he asked Grand-aunt where Jiao Jiao went. "Whose grave is this?" Little Jing Kong asked with his eyes wide open. Gu Jiao looked at the two old tombs and said, "My father's and mother's. This is my father and this is my mother." Little Jing Kong put his hands behind his back, tilted his head and thought for a while. If they are Jiao Jiao's parents, then they are also Jing Kong's parents. Little Jing Kong said as he knelt down and kowtowed to Gu Sanlang and Su Shi. He kowtowed especially sincerely. His head was knocked into the ground, and he even called out for his parents. His voice was childish, but his little face was solemn. His little body knelt in front of the desolate grave, and people couldn't help but tear up. An adopted child could behave like this, but as her own biological child, she could not even call them father and mother. Gu Jinyu felt a little stifled in her heart, as if she had been slapped in the face. "Miss, are you all right?" The young maid sensed that something was amiss with Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu closed his eyes. "I'm fine. Let's go home." "Yes." Gu Jinyu and the others got on the carriage and returned to the mansion. On the other hand, Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong walked back together after clearing the weeds on the grave. "Jiao Jiao, have you recovered from your illness?" Little Jing Kong held Gu Jiao's hand and asked. "Yes, I'm fine." Gu Jiao nodded. Her fever had subsided, which was good news for her. As for the scab on her wound, it was a common occurrence, so she didn't take it to heart. Little Jing Kong heard Gu Jiao say that she was fine, so he believed that she was really fine. He cheered excitedly, I just talked to my parents. Oh. What did you say? When Gu Jiao was weeding, she did hear the little guy mumbling, but she didn't know what he was mumbling about. Little Jing Kong raised his chin and said proudly, I asked my parents to bless Jiao Jiao so that she won't fall ill again. My parents must have heard it, so they let Jiao Jiao recover from her illness. Gu Jiao thought, is that possible? Little Jing Kong firmly believed that Gu Sanlang and his wife had shown up in the netherworld. Obviously, he was the one who made them show up, so it was actually his effort, not his bad brother-in-law who brought the medicine back. He could be said to be a little monk who was constantly fighting with his brother-in-law for favor. After Gu Jinyu left the village, she hurried back to the villa. She had just reached the town when she realized that something was missing. Stop, she ordered. The coachman stopped the carriage by the street. Huang Zhong rode on the horse and asked, Miss, what happened? Gu Jinyu rummaged through her sleeves and purse carefully and frowned. I dropped something. What did you drop? Huang Zhong asked. A letter, Gu Jinyu said. Then I'll ask them to come over and help you look for it. Huang Zhong called a young servant girl and granny from the carriage behind over and helped Gu Jinyu search through the carriage. In the end, they searched through the cabinets and chests but could not find what Gu Jinyu had lost. Is it a very important letter? Huang Zhong asked. Yes. Gu Jinyu nodded. It was a letter that Consort Shu had written to her. There was a question in it. It was originally meant for the princes, but Consort Shu's son, the fifth prince, could not solve it, so he sent a letter to Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu was exceptionally smart, much better than the fifth prince's study companions. Since young, she had always secretly solved the fifth prince's questions and said that the fifth prince had done it himself. The emperor did not know the truth and really thought that the fifth prince was smarter than the other princes. The emperor doted on Consort Shu, and it had something to do with the fifth prince. Hence, Consort Shu especially valued Gu Jinyu. The question this time was set by the emperor himself. It was said that it had stumped all the princes. Everyone in the country of Zhao knew that their emperor did not like poetry and eight-legged prose. He loved to study arithmetic and astronomy. In the letter, Consort Shu had repeatedly instructed Gu Jinyu to help the fifth prince solve the question, and she had to do it quickly. Whoever could solve this problem first would be able to please His Majesty. Gu Jinyu carried the question with her every day. Whenever she was free, she would solve it. But the question set by the emperor was too difficult. She had racked her brains and many geniuses had barely solved half of it. But even if it was only half, she had only managed to solve it after a huge amount of calculation. Today, she had lost the result of all her hard work. Gu Jinyu felt suffocated. She was afraid that she would go crazy if she had to calculate it from the beginning again. Gu Jinyu pressed her chest and said, Could it have been left in the village? I was kneeling there and burning paper money just now. It might have fallen out of my sleeve at that time. Little Jing Kong held Jiao Jiao's hand and skipped home. Gu Jiao went to cook while he went to feed the chicks, shovel the chicken droppings, and clean up the chicken coop. However, before he even started, he discovered something. He looked down at something stuck to his heel and blinked strangely. He bent down to pick it up. It was a small folded envelope. There was no name on the envelope. He opened the envelope and took out the letter inside. There was still no name or signature on the letter. It was a large piece of white paper filled with numbers. This seems to be a question. Little Jing Kong looked confused. This was a field that he had never studied before, so he did not know how to solve it. More importantly, why did it appear at his feet? He was very sure that his shoes were clean before he went out. Could it be? Father and mother gave it to me? The more little Jing Kong thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. Father and mother must have heard his prayer and responded to him. He thought for a moment, put the letter into his pocket, and ran into the kitchen. He squatted down and looked at the soles of Gu Jiao's shoes. Gu Jiao was confused by his look. What are you looking at? Little Jing Kong shook his head like a rattledrum. Nothing. Nothing. Father and mother did not leave a letter for Jiao Jiao. They only left a letter for him. Zhao Zhao did not talk to father and mother just now. He was the only one who spoke. Little Jing Kong was more certain that this letter was written to him by father and mother in the netherworld. But because he did not tell father and mother about his learning level, father and mother overestimated his ability. In order not to disappoint father and mother, little Jing Kong decided to ask for help. Little Jing Kong returned to the kitchen with a pen and paper. Zhao Zhao, I don't know how to solve this question. When little Jing Kong went down the mountain, he brought with him a lot of Buddhist scriptures and some strange questions that were said to be set by his master. His master did not solve some of the questions, but he did not solve some of the questions. When Gu Jiao saw this question, she did not think much about it. She just thought that it was a question left by his master. There was crispy meat in the pot. The temperature of the oil was just right. It could not be too tender or too deep fried. Gu Jiao took some time to solve the question for him. Then, she took out the crispy meat that was fried until it was golden brown. The whole process took less than a minute. Little Jing Kong took the question that he solved and went to Gu Sanlang and his wife's grave. Little Jing Kong was an honest child. He did not hide the fact that he asked Gu Jiao. At the same time, he also recited the Buddhist scriptures that he had learned to Gu Sanlang and his wife. He hoped that they could come up with a question from these scriptures the next time they tested him. Father and mother, have a good rest. I'll leave first. I'll come and see you another day. Little Jing Kong placed the question that he solved in front of the grave. To prevent it from being blown away by the wind, he even found a small stone to press it down. Gu Jinyu and the rest arrived at the entrance of the village. Miss, wait in the horse carriage. We'll go and look for it, the elderly maid said to Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu's body was precious. It was best that she did not appear in such a lowly place frequently. Gu Jinyu thought about it and did not refuse. The elderly maid, the young maid, Huang Zhong and the rest went along the road to look for it. You guys look here. Lu and I will go to the grave to take a look. After the elderly maid finished speaking, she brought the young maid to Gu Sanlang and his wife's grave. The young maid suddenly pointed at a stone on the ground. Elderly maid, look. There's something under the stone. The elderly maid's eyes lit up. She hurried forward to remove the stone, only to find that there was only a pile of burning ashes and a piece of paper money that was not completely burned under the stone. That's right. On the way back, little Jing Kong suddenly remembered something. The paper money for his parents had to be burned before they could receive it. It was the same for the question. Hence, he turned back and burned the question that he had solved. This way, his parents could receive it. I'm really a clever little devil. Digression, little Jing Kong. Quick, praise me. Praise me. Praise me. Oh, asterisk. Oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642/826/115580472. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 95. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. The servant girl and the nanny brought the ashes back to Gu Jinyu with a handkerchief. Gu Jinyu could see some handwriting on the ashes, but it was just a little. It was just enough for her to recognize that it was her question, but she couldn't figure out the complete solution. Gu Jinyu certainly wouldn't guess that little Jing Kong had burned it all. She even thought that she had accidentally left the paper in the paper money, causing it to be burned along with the paper money. Her heart ached at the thought of this. She wanted to vomit blood and faint on the spot. It was still early after dinner. Gu Jiao planned to take a walk on the mountain she bought. She had been going up the mountain recently when she had nothing to do. Besides picking herbs and mushrooms, she also memorized the topography of the entire mountain. Now, she only needed a little more information to construct a topographic map of the entire mountain. Little Jing Kong heard that she was going up the mountain. He tilted his head and asked her, "Can I go with Jiao Jiao?" Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, "Do you want to go back and see your master and senior brothers?" "Mainly, I want to stay with you. But that's fine too." Little Jing Kong jumped down from the stool and said to Gu Jiao, "Then I'll go and see them." The place they were going to this time was quite close to the temple. It was actually on the way. Gu Jiao carried a small basket on her back. Little Jing Kong looked envious, so Gu Jiao made him a small basket too. The small basket contained the gifts he brought for his friends. There were vegetarian meatballs, fried by Gu Jiao. There was osmanthus cake, bought by Gu Jiao. There were wild fruits, picked by Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong carried the same small basket as Gu Jiao's and was very proud. He went to his grandmother's house to show off, then went next door to show off in front of Xuening Xiang and Go Hua. Then, the siblings went up the mountain. Little Jing Kong might be young and small, but he could endure more hardship than most children. He had to walk such a long way to the other side of the mountain, but he still persisted. On the way up the mountain, he kept running forward with Gu Jiao following behind him unhurriedly. When they were halfway up the mountain, he finally ran out of energy and collapsed on the steps like a little salted fish. Gu Jiao carried little salted fish Jing Kong up the mountain. At the entrance of the temple, little Jing Kong, who had recovered his strength, waved at Gu Jiao. "Jiao Jiao, go ahead. I'll look for Jing Fan, Jing Xin, and Jing Shan myself." "Yes." Gu Jiao watched little Jing Kong enter the temple and greet a monk warmly. He even called him senior brother Jingchen. Only then did she feel relieved and went to measure her own mountain. She spent a lot of money to buy this mountain, but the more she went there, the more Gu Jiao felt that it was worth it. There were so many wild herbs and beasts all over the mountain, and they all belonged to her. She was probably lucky today. She dug up 2 ginseng along the way. They were not very big ginseng, but they were enough to make chicken soup. For some reason, Gu Jiao suddenly remembered the trap she set in the forest. However, no one should be so unlucky this time. Unexpectedly, just as this thought flashed through her mind, there was a movement in the forest. It seemed that something really fell down. Over there was the trap she set. It can't be so coincidental. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Maybe it was a big worm? A wolf would be fine too. Gu Jiao was full of expectation to harvest her prey, but when she went there, she took a look. This time it was a person again. Gu Jiao was a little confused. She set traps to catch wild beasts. Why was it always a person who fell into her trap? However, this time it didn't seem to be an ordinary person, but a monk. He was wearing a grayish-white monk's robe and had a slender figure. He was holding something in his arms. His wrist bone was exposed outside his sleeves, and it was as white as jade. Perhaps because he heard the movement on the ground, he raised his head, and an unworldly face entered Gu Jiao's line of sight. This monk had a pair of long and narrow peach blossom eyes, and there was a mole under his right eye. She couldn't tell how old he was, but he looked very young. Gu Jiao sighed inwardly. In this world, even monks were so beautiful? Could it be that the monsters in the forest had turned into spirits and came here to charm women like her? Gu Jiao looked at him warily. He curved his thin red lips and smiled. "Young benefactor, can you pull this poor monk up?" His voice was also very pleasant to the ears. There was a kind of ethereal feeling that came from a deity. Gu Jiao thought for a moment, then took out a rope from her basket and pulled him up. Only then did Gu Jiao realize that he was holding a white and tender little rabbit in his arms, and in the trap he had just been in, there was the corpse of a venomous snake lying there. Gu Jiao looked at the poisonous snake, then looked at the little rabbit in his arms. Did you fall into the trap to save this little rabbit? He nodded with a smile. His smile was very gentle, but it wasn't the motherly gentleness of Yao Shi. It was a gentleness that made people feel dizzy and blush. Unfortunately, Gu Jiao wasn't shy by nature. Because he was handsome, Gu Jiao looked at him a few more times. However, Gu Jiao's heart was very calm. Gu Jiao heard him say this and said, "You're quite kind." Before he could finish his sentence, he saw the other party pull out a dagger and kill the wild rabbit with one slash. Gu Jiao, after the monk killed the rabbit, he asked Gu Jiao for some water and washed the rabbit. Then, he started a bonfire and began to roast the rabbit. Gu Jiao was a little confused. Killing and eating meat, was he a fake monk? Do you want it? He cut off the fattest piece of rabbit meat and skewered it with a dagger. He handed it to Gu Jiao. Everyone who sees it will have a share. Gu Jiao, shouldn't you be thanking me because I saved you? Gu Jiao didn't eat much for lunch, so she was a little hungry now. She took the rabbit meat and took a bite. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't delicious either. It was a bit of a waste of food. Ah, I forgot to add salt. The monk patted his head and took out a small bamboo tube from his wide sleeve. He removed the lid and sprinkled salt on the rabbit meat. This should be much more delicious. He cut another piece and handed it to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao took the rabbit meat. With the salt, it indeed tasted much better. She asked, "You saved it just to eat it?" The monk said matter-of-factly, "What else?" Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. Which monk in the temple is this? Why haven't I seen him before? The monk pointed at the trap beside them. Do you eat snake meat? If you want to eat, go and fish it up. Gu Jiao said, "Why don't you fish it up yourself?" The monk sighed. "I'm scared." Gu Jiao said strangely, "You're scared that you'll beat it to death." "I didn't beat it to death." The monk paused and corrected her. "I bit it to death." Gu Jiao, why did you bite it for no reason? It bit me first. The monk said sternly. He pulled up the left side of his trousers, revealing his swollen calf. Gu Jiao was dumbfounded. A snake bit you, and you bit it back. What kind of operation is this? The snake probably didn't expect that it would be bitten to death by a human one day. Moreover, you were bitten by a snake like this, and you're still in the mood to eat roasted rabbit? Don't you know that you're going to die soon? The monk seemed to have seen through Gu Jiao's thoughts. He sighed and said, "I know." After saying that, he fell to the ground with a thud. He spat out black blood and lost consciousness. Gu Jiao, what kind of weird monk is this? The snake that bit him was a highly venomous many-banded kite. Fortunately, Gu Jiao had anti-venom for the many-banded kite in her medicine box. The anti-venom was a type of horse serum. It contained foreign proteins and could easily cause allergies. Time was tight, so Gu Jiao gave up on the desensitization injection. She painfully gave him 2 shots of anti-allergy medicine. When the monk woke up, he was no longer on the lawn. He found himself sitting under a big tree. It was raining. He glanced at Gu Jiao beside him and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't you know that you can't hide from the rain under a tree during spring?" Gu Jiao looked at him casually and said, "You can still roast rabbit calmly after being bitten by a snake." "I thought you weren't afraid of death." The monk choked and coughed softly. "I thought that I couldn't live, so I had to die with a full stomach. Speaking of which, did you save me?" He pulled up his trousers to take a look. The wound was bandaged and the pain was basically gone. The edema was also gone. "You can even cure snake venom. Are you an expert?" he asked strangely. Gu Jiao didn't answer him. She just sat quietly on the side to hide from the rain. Probably feeling that he owed her 2 favors, the monk felt embarrassed. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Benefactress, what is your surname?" Gu Jiao said. She didn't look at him. She kept looking at the rain. The monk smiled and said, this poor monk knows a little about physiognomy. I can read benefactress Gu's palm. No need. Gu Jiao faintly refused. No woman could refuse such a handsome monk. Gu Jiao was the first. The monk couldn't help but be curious. He looked at her a few more times. Gu Jiao had already put on her bamboo hat. He couldn't see her face clearly. He could only see her delicate chin. The monk curled his lips. He was about to withdraw his gaze when he suddenly saw Gu Jiao playing with a bronze token. He raised his eyebrows in confusion and said, "So Miss is from Marquis Xian Ping's household." "What?" Gu Jiao turned around. The monk's gaze swept over the birthmark on her left cheek. He didn't show any abnormality and said, "The token in your hand." Gu Jiao looked at the token and then looked at him. "You know it?" The monk curled his lips and smiled. He stretched his slender legs and raised an arm behind his head. He leaned against the tree behind him and looked at the heavy rain. "Yes, this poor monk knows it." "Tell me," Gu Jiao said. The monk looked at Gu Jiao playfully. "So you don't know it? Then how did you get this token?" "I picked it up," Gu Jiao said. "Phew." The monk's expression became more playful. His beautiful peach blossom eyes narrowed into two crescent moons. It was like the spring water, full of charm. "Then your luck is really good. You were able to pick up such a valuable thing." As he said this, he withdrew his gaze from Gu Jiao and continued to look at the heavy rain that would stop at an unknown time. Marquis Xian Ping's household is an aristocratic family with hundreds of years of history. It is a relative of the imperial family. It is a tyrant in the capital. It has produced 3 emperors and an empress. What does benefactor Gu want to hear? Gu Jiao didn't ask him how a monk deep in the mountains could understand the situation in the capital. She only said, "Anything is fine." The monk smiled and said, "Then you want to hear everything." Unfortunately, the matters of Marquis Xian Ping's household can't be finished in 3 days and 3 nights. Does benefactor Gu want to ask about people or interesting things? Gu Jiao thought for a moment. "People. Master or servant? Up to you." The monk's smile deepened. "You are clearly the one asking for information. How can you ask me?" "Fine, if you really want to ask about servants, I don't know either. Let's start with Marquis Xian Ping. This Marquis title was inherited from the old Marquis. Marquis Xian Ping is the eldest son of the family and also the son of the first wife. It is only natural for him to inherit the family business. There is nothing to say. He has a younger sister of the first wife and a younger brother born of a concubine. The younger sister is the current empress and the younger brother is the great general of Weiyuan. Ah, I forgot to mention. He also married the princess of Xinyang. He and the princess of Xinyang had a son. That was an amazing son. It is a pity that he died young." "Just these people?" Gu Jiao asked. "There are also a few sons of concubines. They are not enough to reach the apex." As the monk spoke, he once again looked at Gu Jiao with a smile. This time, there was a hint of warning in his smile. "Girl, if you picked up this token, then so be it. Don't flaunt it everywhere. It will easily attract a fatal disaster. Also, don't get involved with the people of Marquis Xian Ping's household. It will also attract a fatal disaster." When he became serious, even the way he addressed her had changed. Gu Jiao did not pay attention to his warning. She was never a person who would allow others to judge the risks. However, this Marquis Xian Ping's household sounded very powerful. Why would Xiao Lulang have the token of Marquis Xian Ping's household? What was his relationship with Marquis Xian Ping's household? Then if... Gu Jiao was halfway through her words when she suddenly realized something. Turning her head, she discovered that the monk who was chattering beside her had suddenly disappeared. What was even more bizarre was that Gu Jiao did not know when he left. Gu Jiao had been in this strange world for so long, and this time she had really met an expert. Gu Jiao looked at the place where the monk had just sat. There was a word written with a finger. Xiao. Gu Jiao pondered. Marquis Xian Ping's household. Is surname Xiao? Xiao Liulong's surname was also Xiao. How could it be so coincidental? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/115578200. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com BQ mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 96. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. The novel was updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found on the internet were available here. Not long after the monks left, the rain stopped. Gu Jiao went to the temple to pick up little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong spent a happy and fulfilling day at the temple. To be exact, it was half a day. He met the gentle and considerate senior brother Jing Chen, several other senior brothers, the abbot, and his former playmates, Jing Fan, Jing Xian, and Jing Shan. As the abbot and his senior brothers were busy, he spent the most time with the 3 little monks. Since there was no Jing Kong to fight for food, the 3 little monks were well nourished and were all rounder than before. Little Jing Kong was no longer the little Jing Kong he used to be. He had changed out of his monk robe and was wearing the clothes of a commoner. Little hair also grew on his little bald head. He was actually the youngest among the little monks, but he was the first to speak, and he was the best at it. In the end, even the abbot could not out-talk him. He proudly showed his little face to the little monks. "Do you see little Yaya? Jiao Jiao gave it to me." I see it, I see it," Jing Fan said. "I see it too," Jing Xian said. Jing Shan was confused and thought for a while, then said slowly, "Then, I see it too." Little Jing Kong was very satisfied. "Will Yaya grow into little Fafa, flower?" Jing Fan pointed at his little face and asked. Little Jing Kong paused and shook his head. "I don't think so. They will only grow into kisses and stay on my face forever." "Can they be eaten?" Jing Fan asked. "No," little Jing Kong said. Since they could not grow into beautiful Fafa, flower, and could not be eaten, the 3 little monks instantly lost interest in kissing little Yaya. However, there was something else in little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong decisively took out a can of vegetarian meatballs that Gu Jiao had packed for him. After opening the lid, a crisp smell of scallion oil drifted out and almost filled half of the courtyard. The young monks were all stunned. Jing Fan's eyes widened. What smells so good?" The 3 of them were drooling. Little Jing Kong wanted to eat meat, but he couldn't. Gu Jiao thought of a way to make vegetarian meat with tofu and other ingredients. He could eat whatever his family ate. For example, when his family ate roast duck, he also had roast duck. When his family ate sausage, he also had sausage. When his family ate braised pork, he also had braised pork. Recently, his family had been eating meatballs, so he had his own Jing Kong meatball. Little Jing Kong ate a small meatball in front of his friends. His strength shocked them. The young monks were stunned once again. "Why you? Are you eating meat? You're not dizzy anymore? Oh my God, this is too scary." "Senior brother, I want to go home." Little Jing Kong was not a mischievous child. After showing off, he confessed the truth about the meatball. "It's vegetarian meat. Jiao Jiao said that monks can also eat it." The 3 young monks were hesitant at first. They were afraid that they would be tricked by Jing Kong into breaking their precepts. In the end, the eldest of the 3, Jing Fan, had a taste of the meatball with the spirit of sacrificing himself. Then, it was out of control. Little Jing Kong, who had always been snatching food from others, encountered the first snatching of food in his life. He was stunned on the spot for 3 seconds. He, the little expert of snatching food in the temple, who had been focused on snatching food for 3.5 years, was snatched by others one day? Not only were the vegetarian meatballs snatched, but even the pastries and wild fruits were not spared. The 3 defeated opponents in the past seemed to have mastered all their skills in an instant, and little Jing Kong was defenseless. Little Jing Kong beat his small chest with his small fists. Sooner or later, he would have to pay for what he had done. The 3 young monks only found out today that the food at the foot of the mountain was so delicious. They suddenly wanted to go down the mountain. What should they do? Putting aside the snatching of food, the 4 of them got along quite well. Little Jing Kong described his life at the foot of the mountain to them. After learning that he was taking in his brother-in-law every day, Jing Fan asked, "Whose brother-in-law?" "Your father." They were still young, and they were not as smart as little Jing Kong. Therefore, they did not understand what brother-in-law meant. However, the male head of the family seemed to be their father. Little Jing Kong sighed. "He's a temporary father. Jiao Jiao can change him at any time." Little Jing Kong called Gu Jiao Jiao Jiao, but in his heart, he treated Gu Jiao as his mother. However, he could not guarantee that Xiao Lulang was his father. After all, according to his observation, this father of his had not been officially promoted yet. He could be fired at any time. As they chatted, they somehow talked about their own homework. Jing Fan said, "We memorized a lot of Buddhist scriptures while you were away. You didn't memorize any of them, right?" Jing Xian agreed. "That's right." Jing Shan nodded. Little Jing Kong raised his eyebrows. "Oh? What did you memorize?" Jing Fan said, "Prajna Paramitha Sutra." Little Jing Kong spread his hands. "I memorized it when I was 2 years old." Jing Xin, Buddha's Medicine Guru Tathagata Sutra. Little Jing Kong shrugged. "I memorized it when I was 2 years and 3 months old." Jing Shan said, "Rong Rong Yen Sutra." Little Jing Kong picked his ears and sighed helplessly. "It's the Rong Yen Sutra, idiot. You even said the wrong name. Are you really memorized it?" The little monks' faces turned red. How were they really memorized it? All they did was memorize the names, and it took them a few days to memorize the names. They were so tired that their little heads were about to explode. "Sigh, it's boring to talk about scriptures with you. I'll go look for the abbot." Little Jing Kong jumped down the stairs and went to look for the abbot with his short legs. The abbot had just sat down in the hall and was about to preach scriptures to the monks. Suddenly, a young novice monk rushed over. "Abbot, bad news. Jing Kong is here to look for you. He wants to talk about scriptures and Zen with you." The abbot's body swayed and the prayer beads in his hands fell out of his hands. That little troublemaker wants to talk about Zen with me? He wants to kill me." Little Jing Kong had been studying Buddhist scriptures since he was a child. He was curious about everything about Buddhist scriptures. If the abbot said one sentence, he would ask 10 questions. In the end, the abbot couldn't answer him. Everything that has a form is fabricated. If everything that has a form is fabricated, then is the abbot also fabricated? If the abbot is fabricated, then what the abbot said to me is also fabricated. Then I can't believe the abbot. If I can't believe the abbot, then I can't believe the Buddhist scriptures that the abbot told me. The Buddhist scriptures are also fabricated. The abbot thought, although you are twisting words and forcing logic, I actually feel that it makes sense. The abbot regained his composure with his professionalism and patiently explained the situation to him. After listening, he said, "I think what you said is wrong." The abbot said, "What's wrong?" "You are too young to understand." Little Jing Kong said, "Buddha is so smart. He must have a way to make me understand. You didn't convey his meaning properly." "This is not my problem, it is the abbot's problem." There were many similar conversations. Usually, the abbot didn't persuade him, but he used his own logic to lead the new monks in the temple astray. The fear of being dominated by little Jing Kong welled up in the abbot's heart and made him feel uncomfortable. When Gu Jiao finally came to pick up Little Clear Sky, Little Clear Sky had successfully questioned all the monks in the hall with her own strength. Black smoke was rising from their heads. "Abbot, I'm leaving. We can discuss this next time." Little Jing Kong turned his head and waved his other hand at the abbot. One of his hands was held by Gu Jiao. The abbot, who wished he could die on the spot, was ashen-faced. "Please don't come." The brother and sister went down the mountain hand in hand. Little Jing Kong was restless and wanted to run down the mountain. However, it had just rained and the road was slippery. Gu Jiao was worried that he would roll down the mountain like a little winter melon, so she didn't dare to let go. "Did you have fun today?" Gu Jiao suddenly asked. "Yes." Little Jing Kong said cutely and raised his little hand to count. "Today I saw Jing Xin, Jing Fan, Jing Shan, Senior Jing Chen, and the abbot." He said a lot of things, basically telling him everything he saw in the temple. "You didn't see your master?" Gu Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong sighed. "He appears and disappears mysteriously. He is rarely on the mountain." "Old man?" Gu Jiao thought of the strange monk in the forest. That monk was very young, so he couldn't be the old man that Little Jing Kong was talking about. What Gu Jiao didn't know was that Little Jing Kong was only referring to his own age. His master was actually not that old. He was more than 20 years younger than the abbot. Gu Jiao asked again, "Then, are there any good-looking monks in the temple?" "The best-looking ones." That monk was almost as good-looking as Xiao Lulang. There was probably no other monk like him in the world. "Yes." Little Jing Kong raised his head solemnly and pointed at himself. "Me?" Gu Jiao was speechless. Gu Jiao said, "Except for you." Little Jing Kong said firmly, "Then there's no one else. I'm the best-looking monk in the world. Except for me, no one else is good-looking." His master wasn't good-looking either. Because his master said that he was the best-looking monk in the world, Little Jing Kong thought that he was the best-looking monk, so he would never admit that his master was good-looking. Gu Jiao said, "Was that person not a monk in this temple?" Digression. Monk. Little brat, who are you saying is not good-looking? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/115546733. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.